Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Radical Democracy. I'm your host, Kamali Rose. Thank you all for being here. It is Thursday, August 20th, 2020, and we are kicking off episode 7 of this show. Welcome to everyone that is here. Thank you so much for being here. As always, do me a favor and like and share this video out to any social media platforms that you use. Please, I appreciate it. That's how we're going to get this channel to grow. If you are not already, if you haven't already and you can afford it, please do me a favor and support the show by heading over to patreon.com, and it's patreon.com/radical democracy. It's down below here. So patreon.com/radical democracy, and do me a favor and just subscribe for a few dollars a month, donate a few dollars a month, and help the channel and the show to grow and to just continue to exist, honestly. So please, if you can afford it, I would greatly appreciate it. All right, so let's get a move on with today's stories. But before I do, actually, let me just say one other thing. I'll mention this throughout the show, but I posed the question on my last stream yesterday about potentially moving my channel, merging it with an older channel of mine, a cannabis growing channel, and that has about 1,000 subscribers now. And I've gotten positive feedback from the community thus far, no negative feedback on that. It's been all positive thus far. So unless otherwise stated, my plan is to move the channel over, to move the Radical Democracy channel over to my old channel, essentially merge it with my old channel. So I'm going to download the videos from Radical Democracy. I'm going to upload those back to the old channel, which is called Greener Thumbs right now, but will be changing its name to Radical Democracy, of course, and will be rebranded as Radical Democracy. And then I will be asking the community to, starting now, please do me a favor and head over to that channel to subscribe. I should put a link in the description box. If I remember to, I will, but I will also just put up the name of the channel here for you. So, all right. So that's, the channel name is Greener Thumbs, and you can head over there now, or I'll leave a link and I'll start to post links on all the videos to redirect you to that channel moving forward, as all my clips will be uploaded to that channel. And then after the videos are done being uploaded to the new channel, likely starting on next week, Monday, I'll begin uploading new videos to that channel. So new live streams will go live on that channel. I'll send out notifications. I'll post a notification on YouTube. So I know this is kind of weird. It's a little, going to be annoying. I'm going to lose some of the subscribers here. I'm sure a few I will lose, but if you can, please do me a favor and just subscribe to Greener Thumbs now, so that you start to get the notifications when those videos go up, and also when we start going live again on that channel. So I'll make the announcement. I'll try to make it as many times as possible, and I'll also likely for a while maybe upload some of the videos to to this channel still, just in case, just so that folks see the new announcements. Okay, so now let's get to the stories. First up, we have all right, I'm seeing that we already got 7 playbacks and only 1 like in here. So, and I see 2 viewers in here, only 1 like. So I'm sure you are liking this this video. Subscribe if you haven't already, and please hit the bell to receive notifications whenever we go live or launch a new video. All right, let's get to it. No, let me, yeah, I'm going to have, Tammy's going to grab, she'll post a link in the comments to the new channel. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So if you post it for me though, I'll repost it. Yep. Okay. So how many? Oh, okay. Yes. Let's get to the news here. All right. So some breaking news. I saw this shortly before I was going live. So news broke around noon today that Nancy Pelosi has endorsed Joe Kennedy in the Massachusetts Senate race against Ed Markey. And I'm a resident of Massachusetts, so this story is a little bit more personal to me, but it matters, I think, for the progressive movement, for left-wing movements, because what we have here, and this is just such a, it just exposes the hypocrisy of the Democratic Party and really puts it just, it's just such a great example of how hypocritical they can be and how they are craven and just really always fighting on the side of corporations against working class people. And so here we have an instance of, so I'll read from this really quickly. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is endorsing Representative Joseph P. Kennedy III in his primary challenge to incumbent Senator Edward J. Markey, a boost for the challenger in what polls suggest is a neck-and-neck race. Pelosi says, "Never before have the times demanded we elect courageous leaders as today, and that is why I am proud to endorse Joe Kennedy for Senate." Pelosi, said this in a video announcing her support for Joe Kennedy, who they have to mention is the 39-year-old challenger, because honestly, his entire platform thus far has been, I'm young, he's old, pick me, I'm new. In case folks aren't familiar with this race, Nancy Pelosi, so Joe Kennedy is you know him from the name. So Joe Kennedy has no reason to be running for the Massachusetts Senate seat other than I'm young, and I'm a Kennedy. That's his entire platform thus far, is I'm young and I'm a Kennedy, so pick me. He based off of policy, he is not in step with progressive voters. He's not in step with the progressive base of the Democratic Party, yet he is pawning himself off as such. He's trying to claim to be. And what Nancy Pelosi has done here is to come in, step in, and try to put her finger on the scale in a race that's being called, neck and neck by, this is from the Boston Globe, this article. So this is a local paper following this race. And the Boston Globe endorsed Ed Markey against Joe Kennedy, which is a bit surprising because they tend to, favor establishment corporate candidates, but Ed Markey is establishment enough, I'm sure, for them. And he's he's not, Bernie Sanders, or he's a solid, Warren-crat type, I suppose, but he's a little bit better than Warren as far as the snakiness is concerned. So okay, they won't even show the okay. So with this, you have Nancy Pelosi putting her finger on the scale in a close race where this is the Democratic Party who says they're like unwritten rule. And honestly, the House, where Nancy Pelosi is the Speaker of the House, the DCCC, they have a written policy, a written rule that says if you try to help a challenger against an incumbent, you will essentially be blacklisted by the DCCC. That's the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. And so the establishment organization that's meant to help Democratic candidates. And so their whole policy is like, we're not going to come in, and the same thing is true in races. That's the excuse they used. For instance, they used that excuse in the case of Joe Crowley against when AOC was running against Joe Crowley. The whole thing was, oh, we're not going to come in step on the scale or back a challenger against an incumbent. And so that's their thing. If you're an incumbent, we're going to protect you, is the whole ideology of the Democratic Party, is protect the incumbents and protect incumbency. And so they say we're not going to get in and back a challenger to an incumbent, particularly an incumbent that is doing their job, and at least aligned with their constituents. And Ed Markey he's been a climate change sort of activist. That's the side that he's on. That's the sort of issue that he's most closely fought for. He does have some history with just the typical soft corruption that you get in Congress. It's the absolute, nothing egregious and nothing worse than anything that every other congressperson has done, essentially, except this newest wave of progressives. And so here we have, now they just break their rule. Nancy Pelosi here will come in and step on the scale. And they did this before. They did this now. So I'll give another example of this soon. But in this case, you have Nancy Pelosi coming in and stepping on the scale now against an incumbent. Ed Markey is the incumbent senator, and she's backing a challenger, but not the more progressive challenger. No, she's backing the more corporate challenger against the more progressive candidate. And I'm trying to, I said in my last stream we talked about, does voting even matter? I gave my opinion on this. Check it out if you haven't already. And I talked about this. And so I said, voting does matter, but not as much as we sometimes lend, our energy and effort and time and money to. But, it may not be proportionate to that, but they do matter in a sense, and they have consequences. And here's an election that is a consequential election. Joe Kennedy is a corporate candidate. He will use the language of Medicare for all and Green New Deal while not supporting anything about those policies. He has no credibility. His entire existence is all about, I'm a Kennedy. I was born into this. I deserve this based on birthright. Like, he thinks that he has birthrights to this seat, and that's it. That's his whole reason for running. He fought against cannabis legalization in Massachusetts, in this Democratic ass state. This dude is responsible for, ensuring and fighting against the federal legislation to make cannabis legal federally. So he has fought against that legislation. He has voted against that legislation. His entire career he spent, helping to keep these, racist laws in place that have incarcerated, disproportionately Black and brown people. And so he does that, and then he turns around, and in the most cynical way, he then turns around and he pretends like he supports progressive policies. This dude will use the language of Medicare for all. He does not support Medicare for all. Joe Kennedy does not support Medicare for all. He does not support a Green New Deal. He does not support $15 minimum wage. He would not fight for a legalization of cannabis. He doesn't really believe in these policies. All that he is slapping a new young face on the same tired ass neoliberal ideology and, letting that thing exist and empowering that for the next, I don't know how many decades. This dude could be in the Senate for the next 30, 40 years. Look at how old Ed Markey is. This dude wants to be the senator for the next 30 to, 30 some odd years. That's what he's looking at. And that's what he thinks, that he's going to hold that power. One of 100 people, this corrupt bastard who, even though he has all that money, now, mind you, the dude was born rich And still, even being born rich wasn't enough for this dude. He's still fucking corrupt. He still sells himself out to corporate donors. He's still like, go look at his open secrets. It's disgusting. The dude he's a crook, and all he wants is power. He's a power hungry, monarch essentially, but oligarch at best. These people think they just feel entitled to the power, and that's all this about. He has nothing. Look at his platform. It's all BS. He doesn't actually support these issues. He doesn't fight for these issues. He will, sure, if you pressure him enough, when he's the opposition party, when he's part of the opposition party, he'll support these things. But look at people's records before they're in the opposite, when their party holds power. That's what I want to know. That's what I want to look at your record. And look at his record. It's been fighting against progressive issues. The dude fights against progressive issues. He doesn't hold progressive values. He's a fucking like 16th generation rich kid, Kennedy, who's just gotten everything in life. He's this mediocre white dude who just has done nothing exceptional his entire fucking life. But now he's, neck and neck for a Senate seat. He got into Congress just on name recognition alone. And he has a chance to win this race based on name recognition alone. Because sadly, Markey hasn't done enough to make a name for himself. If I'm being real, his time in Congress, he should have done more. This is the problem with these people. I mean, he was a congressperson, and then he spent a few years in the Senate here, and he hasn't really made a name for himself until it was, time for the Green New Deal, and this new wave of progressives came in, and he saw what AOC did to Joe Crowley. All of a sudden he got scared, and then he really got real progressive real fast. And so, but that's fine, because you know what? He's actually done substantive work to help move something like the Green New Deal forward. He introduced the legislation alongside AOC, and he has fought for that since then. So credit to Ed Markey. I'm not going to just sit here and, shit on everybody just for having not an imperfect past. He has done and shown genuine, sincere, effort into fighting for progressive causes. Meanwhile, Joe Kennedy, he only does this stuff he just sees where the winds are blowing, and he'll talk a good game, and he's got that gross, like, politician-y speak where it grinds. It just, I hate it. I can't stand it. It's so fake. He's such a fake ass politician. He's just your standard ass fake ass politician who will say anything and do nothing, as Obama said about Hillary Clinton back in the day, which applies to Joe Biden as well, and applies to all these, centrist, neoliberal, Kamala Harris. She doesn't believe in any of this shit. They're not going to fight for it when push comes to shove, and they don't believe in these issues. And so all you're going to see is, people that use the language, and it reminds me of, I wish I had the clip ready, but I would have got demonetized for it anyway. But it reminds me of that clip from it's not, Jay-Z and all his capitalistic ass shit is I'm no fan of, but there's a clip on the American Gangster soundtrack, and I forget what song it is. It might be the song called Blue Magic, but it's in that clip. He plays the clip of Denzel Washington in American Gangster, and he's talking about the brand of Blue Magic, and he's talking to, I forget who he's talking to, but it was like another, Cuba Gooding Jr. is the one who plays the part, and I forget the name of the dude right now because it's been like a decade since I saw the movie, but he's essentially saying to him, like, listen, because the dude's selling Blue Magic, his heroin, essentially, that's been cut up though, and he's still selling it under the name Blue Magic. This other dude is cutting it up with other stuff and selling it under the name Blue Magic, and he's damaging the brand essentially. And Denzel Washington in the movie who plays what the hell's the dude's name? Frank, whatever the hell. I don't know why I'm spacing on this, but he tells him, like, listen, man, like, Blue Magic is a brand, like General Mills, General Motors, or General Mills or whatever. And like, he's like, you don't know me. They don't know me any better than they know the CEO of General Motors, but they know the brand Blue Magic, right? And when you go and you sell some cut up, diluted down version of it, and you still call it Blue Magic, you damage the brand. You weaken the entire brand, and that's what they're doing to Medicare for All. They're weakening the brand when they use the language of Medicare for All and Green New Deal, but then their actual policy and program behind it is the same tired ass neoliberal, regulated market solutions for everything. Let private business handle everything, and we're just going to let the market settle all of this. When they try to run those same, corporate strategies, pro corporate strategies, then we get this. We know what the results of those are, and so this is this was frustrating to see, because who the hell is Nancy Pelosi to come step in this race when their pretend policy is that they don't come in favor of an incumbent, right? In favor of a challenger against a sitting incumbent, particularly when that incumbent is essentially, serving their constituency properly, right? Like, that's supposed to be their whole ideology, their whole like strategy behind this. But what we see is the reality here. They are willing to do that when it's in favor of a, pro corporate policies and against and attacking progressive, candidates and progressive Congress people. So this is what we have here. And the Nancy Pelosi doing this is, it's so infuriating, because you just see the pattern when Dan Lipinski, an anti-abortion Democrat, was running against Marie Newman, not this last time, in 20 when did she just beat him recently? I think she just beat him, I believe. Marie Newman did. But when she faced him in 2018, she ended up losing by a really narrow margin. And Dan Lipinski was the incumbent, but he was an anti-abortion, anti-Pelosi incumbent. The dude had fought against Nancy Pelosi in the past and had tried to get her removed from being the Speaker of the House, essentially. And even with all that, still corporate donors come in and they say, listen, you know who your real owners are, and you're going to do what we say. And what we say is for you to go and endorse an anti-abortion, conservative Democrat. You're going to go and you're going to endorse them against a pro-choice woman who is running for Congress. And this is in the era of, like, you got to vote for women, there's what's her name? Madeleine Albright saying there's a special place in hell for women who don't support other women, when talking about, people coming in to support Hillary Clinton. But here we have a woman running, a pro-choice woman running against an anti-abortion, conservative man, and Nancy Pelosi is out here endorsing the anti-abortion conservative man in a race against this progressive woman who was a Justice Democrats back candidate, who didn't take any corporate cash, raised her money from the people, and was going to be a working class champ, somebody that would fight for working class rights. And she finally broke through and won this time around. But it wasn't with the help, of these, no thanks to these people. And so they shown their what they're really about. And I just wanted to highlight that and make sure that we see their hypocrisy and just see the disgusting hypocrisy. And also, if you can, throw Ed Markey a few bucks if you can, or do some volunteer work, make a few calls for him. These are the types of races that do matter. If we can put a little bit of effort, if we all put, it's worth an hour of our time here. This one's worth an hour of our time, or, $10 or $5 or $1, whatever you can contribute to help push this, help defeat a conservative, anti-progressive candidate who's going to fight against the left and who is going to lie in our faces and gaslight us for the next, who knows, 30 years if he gets into power, Joe Kennedy. And so I just find it really infuriating when Nancy Pelosi comes in and puts her finger on the scale in a race like this, when you have an actual progressive incumbent who they're supposed to be protecting, supposedly, and it's in the Senate, and she steps out of the House and then, and weighs in on a Senate race. And so, and it's going to have some effect. Let's be real. There are a set of people who they listen to Nancy Pelosi and the liberals, and they'll just be like, oh, Nancy Pelosi endorsed Joe Kennedy. He must be progressive. Nancy Pelosi's so progressive. And so there's a set of liberals that are gonna, fall for that. And they're going to go voting for a Joe Kennedy based on this, endorsement from somebody that is literally just looking out for corporations at this point and is fighting against working class policy. So that's what's happening here. Whew. All right. That got me worked up. Let's get into the next story. To everyone that's watching, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, please do me a favor and hit the like button. Like right now, you need to do that. Like there's no excuse for you to not hit that like button. So press that like button. If you haven't already, subscribe. If you haven't already, there's no excuse for that either. You better be subscribed. Support independent Black media, Black left media. We have to help. That's the only way this thing grows. I need your help. I need your support. So hit that like button, share this video out far and wide, social media, wherever you can, like-minded folks that you think might be interested, might be willing to contribute. Please share this with them. Let them know, so I need their help to grow, to make this thing into something massive and to really build a democratic workplace from the ground up. And so I really would appreciate your support. So please do me that favor. Head over to patreon.com/radical democracy and drop me $1 a month if you want. 2, 3, 5, 10, $1 million. No, but seriously though, just drop me a few dollars for real. And it goes so far, it will be used, to build this show and to continue to help it to exist and to grow and to just make it a better production for you. And so please, please, please do me that favor. I need your help. Patreon.com/radical democracy. Thank you so much for watching. Let's get to our next story. Okay. Oh, this is another fun one. Okay. Give me 1 second to... Okay. Sorry about that. Give me 1 second, y'all. Sorry about this. All right. So just to set this clip up, Joe Biden recently released an ad. I think it was a couple of weeks ago now, but I'm just seeing it. It's kind of making the rounds now. And so he released this ad, and it's supposed to be targeting or just using Black people in some really cringy way, in my opinion. And so I wanted to share the ad with you and then give my sort of reaction to it and talk about my reaction to it and just how I feel about this ad, and also just give a little bit more context about Joe Biden and how he has a pattern of doing this with these. So I'll let you check out the ad, and then we will come back and discuss. Okay.
The story of Black America is the story of America. It's the story of a people who have pushed this.
Ooh, sorry. Sound was on. Let me fix the sound for us here. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. Let me do that again. We're going to start from the top on this. I apologize to everyone that had to watch this live. We'll fix that in post. Okay. All right. So Starting from the top here. Don't mind the weirdness. Joe Biden launched an ad recently that I found to be quite cringy, and I wanted to share it with you for folks that haven't seen it yet, and then also just give my reaction and thoughts on this ad. So check it out, and then let's come back and discuss.
Is better than him. The story of Black America is the story of America. It's the story of a people who have pushed this country to live up to its stated ideals. But Black people have always believed in the promise of a better America. So, at this moment we're in now, we must choose to fight for that better America. And just like our ancestors who stood up to the violent racists of a generation ago, we will stand up to this president and say, no more. Because America is better than him. So we choose to be bigger. We choose to be bolder. We choose to bring back justice, respect, and dignity to this country. We choose Joe Biden to lead us all towards that American promise together.
Wow. Okay, guys, I have to do this whole segment over. I'm so sorry. So I was muted there.
And we couldn't hear your intro.
Yeah. So I'm so sorry, folks. So sorry for all the technical difficulties. I'm gonna have to do this one more time. I apologize. This is a mess. Yeah, this is a total mess. So let me.
Let's go through that commercial again.
Yeah, we're gonna have to watch that again. I apologize. We're watching that ad again, guys, and we're gonna do this from the top one more time, one more again. I swear. I'm so sorry. This is this is what it is. All right, get me. go donate patreon.com/radical democracy if you want to help me get a producer so that I don't have to manage all of this and I don't screw this stuff up. So I'm so sorry about the technical difficulties. Let's get back into it. If I don't know why you would after that debacle, but please, if you haven't already, do me a favor and like and subscribe. So hit that like button. It's so simple. Just hit that like button. If you're watching this on your phone, you got to close out the chat and then hit the like button, and then you can open that chat back up and chat with me. All right. So I am so sorry. So sorry. Okay. Thank you so much for all the comments. All right. I see. Thanks for the support in the comments. Appreciate it to all of y'all. Let's get that fixed up this time. And we're going to watch that one more time, y'all. I apologize. All right. So just want to get this right for the sake of the clip after the fact. So, all righty. Okay. Joe Biden recently launched an ad where he is, I suppose it was made to target Black people or to highlight his record with Black folks. I don't know, but we're going to check out this ad and we're going to see what Biden has to say to the Black community. Then we'll come back and we will discuss. All right, so here we go.
The story of Black America is the story of America. It's the story of a people who have pushed this country to live up to its stated ideals. But Black people have always believed in the promise of a better America. So, at this moment we're in now, we must choose to fight for that better America. And just like our ancestors who stood up to the violent racists of a generation ago, we will stand up to this president and say, no more. Because America is better than him. So we choose to be bigger. We choose to be bolder. We choose to bring back justice, respect, and dignity to this country. We choose Joe Biden to lead us all towards that American promise together. This.
All right, so that, and hopefully everyone can hear me now. So that right there was some of the just grossest pandering I've seen, and it was really insulting to me. That what he talked about there, to me, it really rings of, just smacks of that. You ain't Black if you don't vote for me, BS that he pulled. This is just the next step after that, where he's using Blackness, and here he is using the Black freedom struggle that he did not participate in, and in fact was antagonistic towards. And he then turns that around and just whitewashes all of history and tries to use the Black freedom struggle to promote himself for self-promotion of a segregationist, anti-busing, tough on crime. Joe Biden over here is now trying to use Blackness to his advantage when he's done everything that he could to damage and harm Black communities throughout his record in Congress and throughout his time in Congress. The dude has done just so much destruction, so much harm to Black and brown people in this country and all over the world. And to then turn around and use the Black freedom struggle and try to compare, to try to draw a comparison, to say voting for Joe Biden is akin to putting your life on the line in that Black civil rights struggle. He just compared a vote for Joe Biden to the violent struggle for human rights in this country that he did not participate in, that he was antagonistic towards. This is, segregationists are my buddies, Joe Biden over here, now turning around and using Blackness to somehow to boost his campaign, that he will then turn around and his presidency will be used in the same neoliberal way. It will disproportionately damage Black and brown communities. I can tell you now, if Joe Biden wins, and there is no guarantee that he does, but if Joe Biden wins, then he's going to deal more damage to Black and brown people disproportionately. Through policies like he's against Medicare for all, who is disproportionately affected by not having health care. Black women in particular, but Black people more generally, right? And so Black and brown people. And so, disproportionately, it will impact those communities. He's already said he does not support defunding the police. He in fact wants to increase funding to police for garbage, things that have been proven not to work, like body cameras and training, sensitivity training. These tactics have been proven not to work now. And we're still talking about increasing funding to this militarized organization, this authoritarian, totalitarian organization, essentially. And we're supposed to be, empowering them further under a Joe Biden, Kamala Harris presidency and administration. So this is like to use that Blackness and then to turn that around and say, voting for me is, he said, to fight against the violent racists, well, yeah, he's saying, okay, you guys gotta, in order to stop the violent racists, you gotta fight, you gotta vote for a non-violent racist, apparently, because let's be real, Joe Biden is a racist, right? Joe Biden he's not a racist, because that's not all he is, right? He's a lot of other things too. He's sexist and all kinds of shit, rapist, but so he's a lot of ists, right? But he's definitely racist too. And it's covert racism, right? He doesn't believe that Black people, he was put in power to, with Barack Obama as his vice president, not because he plays well with the Black community. In fact, you had Obama, who was doing great with the Black community. You didn't need to shore up any more Black vote. You had Obama, the first Black president, the first Black presidential candidate. You didn't need a Joe Biden to come in and garner more Black vote and expand the Black vote. No, that's not what he was put there for. What Joe Biden was put there for was to assuage the feelings of the racists who needed to still have an excuse to vote in the Democratic Party. So they wanted to appeal to the folks that would be like, oh, I don't want this N-word up in here, right? But you know what? Joe Biden, he'll take care of that boy, and that's the vibe that I get from a Joe Biden. That's what I saw Joe Biden's vice presidency as. So people that celebrate Joe Biden as Obama's vice president, need to recognize what he was there for. He was there to keep homeboy in check. Okay. So that's what it was about. And that's what's in his heart of hearts. He does not believe that he thinks that Black people are, sorry about the noise there. He thinks that black people are just inherently violent. He thinks that we're this, we're super predators and we're criminals. And, he gave that speech in Congress when he was, fighting in favor of his 1994 crime bill, where he said essentially I don't want them to come, these thugs to come and knock my mother upside her head with a lead pipe. I mean, it was this violent imagery that, he's invoking, racist imagery and feelings, and he's trying to invoke that and use that in his favor. Right there in 94 and and even beyond that, 2006, when he talked about immigrants and building a fence because they're bringing drugs, and it sounded like they're bringing crime and they're rapists. It sounded like that same damn speech that he gave. And so this dude is then turning around after having a history of not fighting for these things. He's then going to use the civil rights struggle. Where the hell was Joe Biden in the civil rights movement? Just show me anything. Show me any evidence of Joe Biden fighting for civil rights and sticking his neck out on any line for civil rights at any point in his goddamn life. The dude has been, just a privileged dude, who just got escalated in. He said once that he would be glad to prostitute himself for any kind of corporate cash. He said for corporate donations and donations to his campaign. He's happy to prostitute himself to corporations. He said, like, this dude he was the senator from MBNA, which was the biggest credit card corporation before Bank of America bought them out. And so this dude he has this imagery as working class, cool with black folks Biden, and we really need to expose the racism behind this. And so I want to show a couple more Biden clips just so that we can really get a feel for what we're talking about here. So just to remind us of who he is. So here's a couple more Biden clips I want to show. The first here is from his interview with Charlamagne the God, who is, I'm no big fan of Charlamagne the God. He's like your standard, he's pretty liberal. He's just like a liberal black dude. He's in that, upper class. So he's achieved some things. So he believes in the meritocracy and all those basic, just the neoliberal garbage and stuff. But he does the standard, sort of a bit of race reductionism and just focuses on race issues, and kind of criminal justice is where they their limited mindset is it's all about criminal justice, and not thinking beyond that is about black people need healthcare, education, healthy environment so that we can breathe better air, where, black and brown people are more likely to live in more toxic, under more toxic air and water, even though they don't create that pollution. So that's part of the environmental justice movement. And so I want to bring in this clip and just take a look at Biden and what he's really been about in the past, and shown his hostility. Really, this is to show his hostility towards black people, because he's hostile towards us. And I hate that he gets this image of being pro-black when he's really not. He's been anti-black his whole damn career. And just look at the policy, not the rhetoric. Look at the program, not the rhetoric, as Michael Brooks says. We got to have a distinction between program and rhetoric. And his rhetoric can be, pro-black when he wants it to here and there. But look at his program. His program has been anti-black his entire career. And to then turn around and try to use that and say oh, well, black people have to come along. And I guess you ain't black if you don't vote for Joe Biden. He said it. So let's see. We'll see. Right. So this is Joe Biden on Charlamagne the God's being interviewed by Charlamagne the God here. So I have two clips here. And it's hard to tell which one's which. So bear with me. I might have to pull this up twice. Yep. Gonna have to pull this up twice. Sorry about that, y'all. Need a different clip. And now it's going to be all out of order. So who knows which one's which? We'll find out. Okay, here we go. So sorry, y'all. I have to do this and pull in the audio at the same time. Just a bit of technical difficulty. Bear with me. I'll figure out a way to make this work better in the future. I honestly have no idea which one it's going to be at this point. Oh, terrible. Sorry. There's really no way for me to tell which one is which. They have the same name, unfortunately, on the tabs because I had to cue it to a specific point. Oh, come on. Now they're just effing with me. Come on. I literally picked a different one. It's it goes to the same one no matter what I do. Sorry about that, folks. Give me one more second here. I'm just going to keep on. Okay, come on. All right. All right. It has to be this one this time, I swear. Yes. Okay, here we go with sound.
Thanks so much. That's really our time. I apologize.
You can't do that to black media.
I can't do that to white media and black media because my wife has to go on at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Oh, I'm in trouble.
Listen, you got to come see us when you come to New York, VP Biden.
I will.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
It don't have nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with the fact I want something for my community. I would love to see.
Take a look at my record, man. I extended the voting rights 25 years. I have a record that is second to none. The NAACP has endorsed me every time I've run. I mean, come on. Take a look at the record.
All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Anyway, thanks.
All right, so that's the first clip that I wanted to show. That's the one that circulates more, and most people have seen that at this point. So that right there was, I think it shows some of his hostility. That idea that you ain't black if you don't vote for Joe Biden. No, I'm sorry, but trying to tell me and having some, racist old white dude be the gatekeeper of my blackness and say that in order to be black, I have to somehow support somebody who has done damage to my community. To say shit like that is it's gaslighting, it's insulting. It just pushes me further away from Joe Biden and the Democratic Party. And people have to recognize this, that I don't owe Joe Biden anything as a black person. I don't owe him a damn thing. I don't owe the Democratic Party a damn thing. They have historically dealt damage to my community. They have not done enough to help my community. So I don't owe them a damn thing. They owe me something. They have, we don't even talk about reparations. That's not even on we're not even gonna, I can't even bring that up. It's so far beyond people's mentality and mindset and just, we can't even talk about that issue. We're not even, I won't even bring it up because that's too radical for these people to just pay back what's owed. But we don't even have to go there. I mean, we're going to talk about it because he said, look at his record, right? Look, you ain't black if you even think about, not voting for him, you ain't black. And he said, look at his record. We're going to take a look at some of his record. We are definitely going to look at some of his record today. And we're going to talk about his record for sure. But before we do, I just want to show you one other clip from the same interview, because if you watch this full interview, and I'll leave a link in the description, not right now, I don't have it ready yet, but when I finish uploading the video, I will drop a link in the description box for where you can watch this full interview. And I recommend everybody check out the full interview. It's about 15 or 20 minutes long. I think it's about 20 minutes long. And his hostility the whole time, he's so hostile. And I'm telling you, he's like that whenever he's in. This is like a sanitized version of Biden here that we're seeing. It's this sanitized version where it's like it's recorded, he's agreed to do this interview, he's prepped, he's all ready. This isn't like some off the cuff, somebody bumped into him on the street thing. He had all the time to prepare for this, and this is the hostility that he shows towards just this black interviewer who's, again, dude's a liberal. He's not even like he's not a leftist. He's not radical. He's not over here asking for things like Medicare for all or anything. He's not even asking for things like that. Like, he's just talking about basic criminal justice reform issues like ending cash bail and things like this. Tell us about what you're going to do. Stop telling us, the other person is just so bad, so you have to vote for me because look how bad they are. That's just not a good motivator. It's not a good motivator. Right now, voting may literally require people to risk their lives in this election. You are asking some people who might not be able to vote by mail. You are asking some people to risk their lives in the midst of a pandemic to go vote for this person. You're going to tell me that they don't owe us something, that these politicians don't have to, that they don't need to earn our vote? That's absurd. That's absurd. They need to work to earn our vote, not the other way around. We don't owe them anything. They owe us, right? They have to come meet us by giving us policies, presenting some sort of policies and program that make us want to, urge us to go out and vote, because it takes time, it takes energy. And at this point, it's a risk of your health and your safety and your community. It's risking your community's health. So, it's a bigger ask than ever to ask somebody to go vote for them. And so, when he says stuff like this, so let's just take a look at this other clip so we can really see he in here. He talked about, extending the voting rights. It's like are you kidding me? He's like, what he literally said, I'm sorry, I gotta say this. He said, nigga, I let you vote. That's what the fuck he just said. He just said, nigga, I let you vote. You better vote for me. I let you vote. I gave you those rights. I'm the one that gave you the rights to vote. All right. And he didn't say it with the A. He said it with the hard motherfucking R. Like, I'm sorry to swear, I'm sorry to cuss, but it pisses me the fuck off. And I try not to, I try to hold back and try. I'm telling you, this shit pisses me off to levels I cannot even describe. Like, to voting rights record, because I'm sorry, what brought that up is that I saw a comment here. Mark McKeever, great point. I'm sorry, Mark McKeever makes a great point. Extending the voting rights is kind of a layup, right? Not as bold as he's advertising, right? Exactly. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? Extending the voting rights? Like, that's the most basic thing. Oh, we let you vote. Yeah, of course. That's a basic human right. You feel proud. You want to pat yourself on the back for voting rights? That's it. That's what you can point to for, we did stuff for you, black people, right? It's voting rights. We let you vote. And so what if you let us vote, but all we get to vote for is piece of shit corporate scumbags? Then I don't give a fuck about your vote. Your vote doesn't mean a whole lot when you then limit us to not actually having any good fucking candidates to vote for. So yeah, we get to vote in this next election, but you can't vote for your values in this next election. If you're a leftist, you don't get to vote for your values. If you care about really uplifting the masses of black people, you don't get a fucking vote in this election. You can't vote for that in this election. So to say, oh, but we gave you voting rights, it's so deeply fucking insulting to be like, I gave you voting rights. You didn't give me shit. First off, you cast your little basic ass, punk ass vote is the most basic little thing you could goddamn do. You didn't have to lift but a goddamn finger. He probably had some other senator vote for him because they do that shit all the time. He probably didn't even have to lift a goddamn finger to do the vote. And, then you're going to turn around and expect something back from us for that little basic ass bullshit gesture. Come on, look at what the damage your damn record has done, which we're going to talk about soon. So before we go there, and I'm sorry, I'm probably clipping the audio shouting right now. So I'm going to move my mic a little bit because the audio is probably clipping right now. But I'm going to show this next clip to show his hostility towards us. If you're wondering why I'm still so hostile towards Joe Biden, please check out his attitude towards us. Look at how hostile he is towards us. And I'm telling you, the next person that he's talking to, keep in mind, this is a liberal black person who's not even talking about radical, Bernie, even Bernie. He's not even Bernie. He's not even as left as Bernie. The dude is a centrist, essentially. And this is how he responds to that person, okay? No, and Mark, don't worry. It's not you getting me riled up. It's Joe Biden getting me riled up. It's just Joe Biden and thinking about all the people that interact with me that tell me, oh, you have to vote for, oh, all right, oh, then you're voting for Trump. If you're not voting for Biden, a vote for, if you don't vote for Trump, if you don't vote for Biden, that's a vote for Trump. No, not voting for Trump is not voting for Biden is not voting for Biden. Not voting, Trump supporters could come out and say the same thing, right? If I don't vote for either one of them, right, which is what I'm saying I'm going to do, then it doesn't mean I'm voting for the other one. No, I'm voting based on my values, and I'm so sick of voting and getting nothing for it. I'm just fed up with it. I've done it now for my entire voting life. I voted and gotten nothing from it. I voted for Democrats every single time. I voted for the establishment Democrat every single time. And my life has had no substantive difference under a, Democratic presidency or a Republican presidency. I've gotten my life personally, no substantive difference. That's how I've experienced it. And so, and in fact, my life gets worse increasingly, no matter who the hell is the president. So let's just cut to this clip real quick. Check out this clip. I think I scared a bunch of people off with my shouting because we're down to only 4 live views now. So I'm sorry if I scared some folks off, but you got to get real sometimes, right? You got to cuss a little bit. You got to say a couple of words that people aren't comfortable with. I apologize. I don't like, let me say, I don't like using the N word, even, as a black person, I just don't like it. I say it, not saying it freely and shit. I'm saying it as this is what I feel like he was saying, so this is what it sounds like to me. So let me play this next clip of Biden in the same interview with Charlemagne the God, and just check out his hostility in this clip. Per usual, it'll take me a little second just to get this thing queued up. And you saw it before. Let me actually make it a lot easier on us this time. All right. Oh, I don't think that audio's playing, is it? Sorry about that. Let me do that one more time.
Why so much resistance on admitting the crime bill and other legislation you are a part of was damaging to the Black community? Because we had Hillary on a few years ago, and Ms. Clinton said that the crime bill, we made a lot of mistakes with that, and she wanted to atone for that by becoming the next president. Like,
She was wrong. What happened was it wasn't the crime bill. It was the drug legislation. It was the institution of mandatory minimums, which I oppose. Mandatory, I oppose the ban.
I thought you was a part of that in '84 as well. The Comprehensive Crime Control Act that established mandatory minimum sentences for drug offenses.
No. What happened was what you're confusing is what happened was the Black Caucus came to me and said, look, I did this study when I was chairman of the Judiciary Committee. We looked at every district of the of the 10 court districts in America, federal court districts, and we found out that if you got arrested for robbery and convicted, and I got arrested for robbery and convicted, it was the first time, you went to jail an average of 13 years. I went to jail an average of 3 years. So there was this whole move, same time for the same crime. So no one based on their color could go to jail longer than anybody else for the same crime. So what happened was there was a judicial selection committee setting up that how you deal with making sure that the sentencing process is taken out of the hands of prosecutors saying, I'm going to want 12 years, 13 years for you, and 3 years for me.
Okay, so that was the other clip I wanted to share. You can see in there that he says, when Charlemagne asked him about his initially the 1994 crime bill that created the mass incarceration problem in this country, that incarceration level shot up. Now we have 2.3 million people incarcerated in this country. 25% of the world's incarcerated, even though we only have 5% of the world's population. So thank you, Joe Biden. Most of those are Black and brown people. And so he says, in response to that, when Charlemagne says, well, I mean, this was your 1994 crime bill that created the mass incarceration problem. And he says, no. And he says, well, Hillary apologized for that and said she would like to fix it. Wouldn't you? And they're telling us, well, Joe Biden's the most progressive candidate in history. This is going to be the most progressive Democratic platform. This is going to be the most progressive president in our history. But he's saying, well, Hillary Clinton even was saying that she was willing to admit that you were wrong on this, that you got it wrong. But no, he says, no, she was wrong. She was wrong to apologize for it. She was wrong to say that the 1994 bill caused damage. So here he is doubling down on his 1994 crime bill, saying, no, he still sticks by it today. He still sticks by it even today. So here he is, 2020, after seeing all the damage it's wrought, and analysts agree across the board, that thing has wrought untold damage to Black and brown communities, that 1994 crime bill that he championed. I should pull up the clip of him talking about it, because it's infuriating to hear him talk about. Maybe I will. You know what? I probably should pull up the clip of him talking and defending his 1994 crime bill. And so this is it though, right? He says, that first, that she was wrong. Mind you, Charlemagne the God is right in everything that he said. Everything that Charlemagne said on this, he was actually correct. So when he said, wait, you signed off on that 1994 crime bill, you voted for that, you championed that, wasn't that you? He says, no, well, she was wrong to, Hillary Clinton, she was wrong to apologize for that. She was wrong to say that she would change, that mistakes were made there. He says that it was the mandatory minimums, the 1984, he says it was the mandatory minimums that dealt the real damage. Well, then Charlemagne correctly points out, well, wait, didn't you support the 1984 commission crime bill, that created the mandatory minimums? And he says, no. Well, let's check out. Let's look at his record, because he said before in that last clip, look at his record, man. He's done so much for the Black community. Look at his record, right? Okay, let's check out his record really quickly. So here, this is a New York Times article that details some of Joe Biden's record. So let's take a look. So this is from a New York Times article from June 27th, 2019. And the article is titled Joe Biden on Crime and Mass Incarceration. So, and it says, the byline says, during the 80s and 90s, Mr. Biden helped shepherd a string of bills that transformed the criminal justice system and, experts say, hurt America's Black communities. Okay, so I'm just gonna say that one more time because people just act when I say Joe Biden dealt damage to Black communities, and this is not geared towards anyone in this chat or anything like that. This is for the folks that watch us later. It says during the 80s and 90s, Mr. Biden, that's Joe Biden, helped shepherd a string of bills that transformed the criminal justice system and, experts say, hurt America's Black communities. So they give some further context, and they say the context. During the 1980s and 1990s, when Mr. Biden was a senator from Delaware, he and other leaders of the powerful Senate Judiciary Committee helped fashion a string of bills that overhauled the country's crime laws. Among the most significant were the Comprehensive Crime Control Act of 1984, which established mandatory minimum sentences for drug offenses, the 1986 Anti-Drug Abuse Act, which imposed harsher sentences for possession of crack than for possession of powder cocaine, and the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of 1994, which was essentially a catch-all tough-on-crime bill. So this is it, right? This is his record. He lies to people's faces. He will lie to our face about his record, gaslighting us. For anybody that has the privilege, because it's a privilege to be able to have this information. Sadly, the mainstream media does not provide this information in obvious place. They don't replay this. They don't bring this stuff up constantly during the election. No, they like to talk about the horse race, and they harp on that sort of stuff. And they don't want to talk about the real issue, right? And so in real issues like this, and in really laying out his record. So this is his record, and he'll lie in your face, and he'll get hostile and say, no, he was wrong. And he says, no, and he pushes back at Charlemagne and says that Charlemagne was wrong about his entire record, the 1984 legislation, the 1994. But that was good on Charlemagne to actually catch that and to have that information ready and to call him out on it. And so, and you just don't see this in other this is Charlemagne the God is he's not real mainstream media. He's not CNN or MSNBC. You're never going to see Joe Biden get pushback like this from any, actual Black people on any mainstream media outlet. This is the little space that Joe Biden's going to receive any kind of pushback on this. And look what happens. He can't handle himself in this. He's hostile towards Black people. Still to this day, 2020, he's still hostile. He still believes in his screwed up crime bill that destroyed Black communities, created the mass incarceration problem, which ends up enslaving Black people in this country. Because let's be real, prison labor is slave labor. The 13th Amendment carves out an exception for slavery in the case of prison labor. So Joe Biden helped to increase slave labor in this country. He personally fought for that. And it was Black slave labor, Black and brown slave labor, and poor people. Let's be real, who, gets it the most. It's poor people above all, but disproportionately poor people are Black and brown and, immigrant families. And so this is what ends up happening, right? And so we got to call out the dude's record, make note of it, acknowledge that, he's not great for Black communities. All he's done is just have Black friends, essentially. That's his whole shtick with Black people, is he's taken I have Black friends to the next level at this point. This is I've got Black friends, this is that to the highest degree right here. This is what it looks like at its extreme, where it's like, well, I'm cool with Barack Obama, and look at Kamala Harris, women and black people like me, you know, and the Asians too. The Asians are down, you know, like, so this is what it is.
And it's not even like, oh, I got black friends. It's like, I have a black coworker.
Exactly. And Tammy points out, you know, it's like, it's not even like I got black friends. It's like I had a black coworker, you know, that's Tammy quote right there. Exactly. So this is what, right. He will give nothing to us. He will say anything and he will do nothing for black people. He will say anything and he will do nothing. And that's who Joe Biden is. One last reminder of who Biden is. Actually, let's watch this one more clip of Joe Biden before we leave this topic behind. This one is to just show his contempt for young people. And I'm a millennial, an elder millennial, but still consider myself young still. And so I feel personally attacked when he talks about his contempt for young people. And so I just want to show more of his stolen valor in his contempt for young people. So here's another clip of Joe Biden showing how he feels about progressives, the progressive left, young activists, young people in general, our entire generation, Gen Y, Gen Z, you know, millennials, Zoomers. This is how he feels about all of us. So just take note. And yeah, let's see. So pull up our next clip here. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, found it. Okay. Oh, didn't bring in the sound. Sorry about that. One more time.
Shortly after I graduated in 68, Kent State, 17 kids shot dead. And so the younger generation now tells me how tough things are. Give me a break. No. I have no empathy for it. Give me a break. Because here's the deal, guys. We decided we were going to change the world, and we did. We did. We finished the civil rights movement to the first stage. The women's movement came to being. So my message is, get involved.
Public service.
All right. So there's Joe Biden showing his contempt for the younger generations. He says he has no empathy for our generations. He then does this stolen valor shit again, where he claims valor for the civil rights struggle when he did nothing. He did nothing for the civil rights struggle. Okay. And yet he comes in, he claims valor for it. He claims victory after the fact. He acts like he has some sort of, you know, connection to that struggle in any way. And then he also talks about how he was at Kent State in 68 and how in 1970 there was a Kent State massacre. You know, there was, you know, 17 kids shot dead, he said. I looked that up because I wasn't totally familiar with that. I looked that up. The only thing I could find was something called the Kent State Massacre in 1970. That was a couple of years after he left school. It was called the Kent State Massacre. And in that, 4 people were shot dead. Not that I'm, you know, lessening that impact anyway. This was, you know, a horrific, monstrous thing that the U.S. government, you know, the U.S. government did. But, you know, in this Kent State Massacre, first off, it just wasn't 17 people that died, like were shot dead. It's 4 people that were shot dead and 9 were wounded. They were students protesting. They were anti-war protesters protesting against the Vietnam War and the U.S. involvement in that war, and specifically their expansion into Cambodia, which was a neutral country in this, and the U.S. was trying to expand put bases inside of Cambodia. And so these anti-war students were protesting that, and the Ohio National Guard came in and at some point began opening fire on these students and shot 13 students, killing 4 of them in a heinous crime. Like, that's disgusting and sickening. But here is Joe Biden trying to take credit for the anti-war movement when he's never, fought on the side of like anti-war. Like, he's taken slightly anti-war stances perchance, but he was not a part of the anti-war Vietnam movement. He has a quote specifically. I'll pull up this quote of his actually. Let's see. There's a quote of his. Let's pull that. So here's Biden. This is a quote. This is a quote and just a little background on him. This is from The Obamians by James Mann, published in June 4th, 2012. And it says that Joe Biden opposed Vietnam but didn't identify with anti-war movement. This was taken from ontheissues.org. So this is just an excerpt from ontheissues.org. And they highlight this passage from the Obamians about Joe Biden. And it says, Joe Biden, the young senator from Delaware, like other Democrats outside the South, he had opposed the Vietnam War. Yet Biden was never closely identified with the anti-war movement. Graduating in 1965, he was a little too old and too interested in electoral politics. You're looking at, so this is a quote from Joe Biden. He says, "You're looking at a middle-class guy. I am who I am," he once quipped. "I'm not big on flak jackets and tie-dye shirts. And, that's not me." So here he is shitting on the hippies and saying, I'm not one of those hippies, anti-war folks. That's not me. I'm over here in my business suits, and I'm the politician Joe Biden. And so he rejects these movements. He doesn't fight in these movements, but then he comes back after the fact and he acts like he deserves some sort of credit for this stuff. And so it's really just, it's insulting. It's insulting to our intelligence. It's gaslighting when you actually know the history of Joe Biden and his history for him to claim this stuff. Like, listen, if you're voting for Joe Biden, and I'm pretty sure I scared a whole bunch of folks, but like, listen, if you're voting for Joe Biden, I'm not saying you're absolutely like you're a horrible person or anything wrong with you. Like, I get the vote. I get why you might vote for him. Like, you're looking at Trump and he's terrible. But let's just be honest about who Joe Biden is. If we're going to vote for him, you got to be honest about who he is. It's fine if you want to vote for him, but vote for him and just be honest about his record. At least that's Cornel West's stance, right? He's like, I'm going to vote for him, but let's not pretend that he's some progressive, radical leftist that's going to bring about real radical change in this country. He's not. We're going to get more of the same stuff that we had right before Trump. Okay. We're about to get that. If we got two choices, we get Trump or we get the stuff that we had right before Trump. And the stuff that we had right before Trump led to Trump. I hate this assumption that there's nothing worse than Trump and we can't get something worse than Trump. We can get something worse than Trump, and we will get something worse than Trump if we continue to elect these corporate neoliberal ghouls who will say anything and do nothing. And they will say it to people, and they will take the branding of Medicare for All, and they'll use that branding, and they'll apply the branding of like Medicare for All onto a public option, which is likely to fail, a public option for all, reasons that have been pointed out by experts about. If you have a public option, then all that's going to do is push all the sickest people off onto the public option. It's going to overburden the public option, and then it's going to falter because it's being overburdened, because all the private companies are going to push everybody off of their private insurance that's sick. They're going to find every reason they can to push you off and to put you onto the public option. And then once it's going to get overburdened with all the sickest people, and then it's going to fail. And then Republicans are going to turn around, and even some Democrats are going to turn around, and they're going to say, I guess that Medicare for All was a failure. Universal health care was a failure, when it's really their, weakened, compromised policies that are really going to be the ones that fail. But they'll brand it, and they'll use all the language of progressive language, and they will hurt our movement. They will damage our movement. And so that's my big fear with the Biden presidency. That's why I'm not voting for Joe Biden, because I can't bring myself to feel complicit in his presidency. I don't want to feel complicit when he does what he does. I just don't want to feel complicit in it. If everybody thinks like me, then sure, we would get a green candidate elected, right? If everybody thought that way and everybody voted on their values, then the green candidate would be elected. But that's not the reality we live in. I know I'm not going to be able to change the world in that way. I'm not going to influence enough people to change enough votes or anything like that. But I do say, if you live in a safe blue state, consider voting for a Green Party to empower a third party, give them get them over the 5% threshold, and and not feel gross inside. And honestly, even if you don't live in a swing state, I don't think that the votes of the people that are listening to this show, I don't think they're sadly going to matter enough. I don't have that big of an impact, unfortunately. I don't have that much reach. And so, but if everybody here watches, that watching does that, there's some chance that we can help empower a third party and have some viable third party challenge to this two-party duopoly system that we have. That's just not, it's two capitalist parties that are getting narrower and narrower in more and more difficult to differentiate between. So sorry for my very long, very loud, sort of angry sounding rant. I swear I'm not angry, just excited. It's just excitement, folks. So lots of great comments I'm seeing. Thank you so much for being so supportive. Let's take a few comments here, and then we'll try to jump to the next stories. I'll try not to get too lost in the comments. I love reading comments and engaging with the comments and engaging with the community. So I get a little sidetracked on it sometimes and forget to come back to the story. So I'm trying to be better about that, work on my format of the show, and these things will get smoother over time. We'll get better with this. We'll grow together. So let's do some growing here. Tammy says, wait, is this an ad from his own campaign, or did some other org endorsing him make this ad? That's an ad straight from Joe Biden. Joe Biden's campaign launched that ad, and Joe Biden is, it's on Joe Biden's YouTube channel. That's where I pulled that ad from. So that's on just the straight Joe Biden launched that ad, not another organization doing that. That's straight up him doing it. It says, Tammy goes on to say, it's more cringe if it's from his campaign team because of the language behind "we choose Joe Biden." Exactly, like saying "we." Like I wrote that down too. He said like "we decided." He did that in the
No shit, you did. Your campaign.
Exactly.
Put yourself in third person.
Absolutely. So he talks about like "we decided," and that sort of, it's as if he's speaking for us. Here is his campaign speaking for all of Black people now, and he feels entitled to that. Who the hell is he? What? Because he has a Black woman on his campaign now he gets to just say whatever the hell he wants, even though he's done nothing for Black people his entire life, really, other than pander to us. Mark McKeever says, no disrespect, but wouldn't this ad be more effective if more minority races were represented within the ad? I don't know, honestly. I'll keep going, because I know Mark had some follow-up comments to this. And I think this sort of got resolved in there, so I won't dwell on it. But I don't think so, honestly. So Tammy says the pandering is on some "I'm with her" hashtag "I'm with her" Hillary 2016 stuff. Yep, exactly. Except it's worse than Hillary pandering because he's not trying to work for Black people's votes. He's just demanding it. Exactly. If you saw the little image for this thumbnail for this video, that's, it's not, he doesn't think Black lives matter. He thinks Black votes matter. And this is all about getting Black votes. And he will say anything right now to get our votes. And as soon as he has the Black vote, he will give you nothing for the next 4 years. He will spit in your face and he will tell you that it's raining. Okay. He's going to spit in your face continually and tell you that it's raining. And that's what you're going to get from Joe Biden. So get ready for it, and get ready for a whole bunch of the liberal, friends we got to just get real complacent and be like, whoa, we got Trump out, so everything's solved now. All the problems are solved. Everything's good. I can go back and go to brunch now. And they're going to be off at brunch and there's going to be no George Floyd reaction. There's not going to be mass protests because all these, liberals are going to be comfortable with the absence of tension, not ignoring the fact that there's an absence of justice as well. And so they'll be fine because at least he's not tweeting, he's not going to tweet all this terrible stuff. Martin McKeever says, okay, disregard my previous comment. You bring up great points about Biden's past that I obviously forgot about. The ad is pretty shallow in its messaging. Thank you so much for saying that, Mark. And, for coming around in a way on that. And yeah, that's why I do this, try to remind and bring these things to the forefront, because sadly, the mainstream media, who has all the resources in the world, they have, these mainstream media hosts Rachel Maddow is paid millions of dollars a year, tens of thousands of dollars every episode, and she does an episode 5 days a week. And like independent media, meanwhile, I got $37 a month pledge, and that's great for me. Like I'm happy and proud of that and stuff. And like that's like we're tiny, we're tiny and we're powerless. And like here, these people have all these resources, all this power, and they don't inform. They don't use their power and their resources to inform the public. Instead, they just do this like sensationalized, just scandals, and they just like to sensationalize the news instead of talking about bringing the information to people. In no democracy should a person have just run for president of the United States and a large segment of the population does not have a real good idea of his record, particularly on like black issues, which he likes to like hide behind, and he hides behind a blackness that he does not deserve to be able to hide behind, and he has not earned that in any way. And so I'm going to do my best to try to bring these things to the forefront, try to expose this information. And, for everyone that isn't already, I know Mark McKeever is he's our newest Patreon patron. Shout out to Mark McKeever. To everyone else that can, please do me that favor and head over to patreon.com/radical democracy and drop me a few dollars a month to support independent media, allow independent black media, in particular left-wing media, to grow and to flourish. Really, it can only happen a few dollars at a time, grassroots donations from the ground up. And so I'm asking you to please participate in that. Do me a massive favor and head over, if you haven't already, to patreon.com/radical democracy. You see it right down there below, and just drop me a few dollars a month to help I'm building this out as a democratic workplace. I want to build democracy into the workplace and fight for that. That's how I actually genuinely believe we're going to overthrow capitalism, is by building democratic workplaces from the ground up in our communities and in whatever we do, whatever we're working on, whatever endeavors we work in. And so fighting for democracy in the workplace is what I believe to be the fundamental change. And I get that from economists Richard Wolff and Cornel West, and David Harvey I talk about, and even Noam Chomsky, and just folks that are have been fighting on the left for much longer, much smarter people than myself, who have paved the way. And so if you can, please do me a favor and donate. Patreon.com/radical democracy. Help independent black left-wing media to grow and to thrive, and to just offset all the mainstream BS that we get. So I think independent media is going to take over, and independent, especially left media, but I think independent media is going to take over. And there will be a time where we are we really have power in left media and independent media. And trust me, it's going to be a people backed power. And it happens through folks doing what they do and contributing and sharing and commenting and just doing whatever you can to contribute to the cause. And it doesn't just have to be my channel. Check out other folks' channels and subscribe, and watch more independent media and get just a broader view. Find some socialists, some leftists, some centrists, if you like, and get a mix of it and get informed. And not you, Mark, obviously. I know you're clearly getting enough media and stuff, but to everybody, just support independent media. And if you can, support the show, patreon.com/radical democracy. Otherwise, if you haven't already, you better have hit that like button below. Like, you have no excuse at this point. Hit that like button for me. Smash that like button, please. So hit the like button. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to my other channel if you haven't too, Greener Thumbs. We're going to be moving this channel over there. And so I've talked about that before. I'll keep talking about it, but I'm going to be merging two channels that I had. I used to have a cannabis growing channel that has it has 1,000 subscribers now. Actually, I saw that Tammy dropped a comment in there at some point. She says, just saw Greener Thumb subscriber count and it's at 1,000. Yay. So my other channel has 1,000 subscribers. When I get the rest of the community to move over, it should go slightly over 1,000, hopefully. And then once I start releasing political videos, it's going to probably dip a little bit below 1,000, because I'm probably going to lose a few subscribers who have been watching me for cannabis growing. And then they're like, why the hell is this guy talking about politics all of a sudden? And just teach me how to grow weed, dude. Which maybe we can do sometime. I love growing cannabis, and I grew some. My family's Rastafarian. Sorry, I don't have the locks to show that. I used to have 5-foot long dreads, but I sadly cut them. One of the big mistakes of my life. I really miss them. But yeah, so please support the channel, head over and subscribe to the Greener Thumbs at some point, because this channel is going to move over there soon. And I'll give you some more information about that in the very near future. Just a good comment from Mark McKeever says, hashtag Dems 2020, arms wide open for Republicans, middle finger for progressives. Citizens united and the donor class is destroying democracy. I couldn't agree more. I love the comment. Thank you, Mark. They hate progressives more than they hate Republicans. Look at how the DNC courted Republicans, John Kasich, Colin Powell, George Bush's Colin Powell, Mike Bloomberg, 3 lifelong Republicans spoke at the DNC, and they apparently, all those 3 Republicans spoke at the 1996 or something DNC as well. And they're just these tired old Republicans. They trotted out, but gave AOC like a 60-second pre-recorded clip that she was able to do, that they pre-approved, pre-recorded clip. And she did that was the highlight of the entire DNC, was AOC's 60-second clip was the only 60 seconds of it that I actually enjoyed. I didn't watch most of it. I cannot watch most of it. Shout out to Tim Black, who watched the whole damn thing. And I had to watch his, coverage of it because I cannot do it. So shout out to Tim Black, another independent Black media channel that I hope everyone's already subscribed to. He's much bigger platform than me, and I hope to grow to that Tim Black level someday. Fellow ball brother, shout out to the ball Black brothers out there, shout out. So big shout out to Tim Black, and thank you for doing that. And I checked it out through his channel and saw the AOC clip, and I really loved his response to the AOC thing, just talking about how, a lot of people, we tend to be really critical of some left progressives that are fighting in some arenas that we may disagree with, like electoral politics. We don't feel like that should be where the main fight is for some leftists. And that can create you get this situation where some people are a little overly critical sometimes of folks that are, say, working inside of electoral politics and fighting for change that way. And so he says something along the lines like, we really got to stop being so critical when these are the people that are actually putting their necks on the line, sticking their necks out for the movement and really fighting. So shout out to AOC, who I had the honor of meeting before she won her primary. I supported her in 2017 before she won her primary. Since the day that she was announced as a Justice Democrat, I was supportive of her, donated to her campaign. It's one of the most I've ever donated to any politician's campaign. It was the most for a long time. And then Bernie's 2020 campaign came along and I donated a ton of money to him. Even while I was unemployed, I had a $50 recurrent donation to Bernie. So, all right, I think I got to skip ahead and just another good point from Mark McKeever. He says, Mr. West quote, Cornel West quote was perfect. Voting for Biden doesn't mean I endorse him. Exactly. He said, I'm gonna vote for him, but I'm not gonna endorse him. I'm not gonna endorse the dude. I'll vote for him, but I will not endorse him because I know who he is and I know what he is. And I'm not gonna pretend like he's some progressive champion or something and lie to people like that, because you lose credibility when you do that, right? If you're dishonest to people and they can then look up the information and see your inconsistency, then you lose credibility. And so it's okay if you want to vote for Biden. You don't have to endorse him necessarily. You don't have to go and pretend like he's some progressive, champion or anything like that. Call him what he is. We're not going to get much, but Cornel West says Trump is just so much worse that, he considers him a neo-fascist and he thinks that he's a unique threat. So I get it. I get why people are voting for him. I don't know what the correct answer is. I'm mad at the Democratic Party for not making the choice obvious and clear, for not giving us a clear, good choice there. And so that's who I'm frustrated with, not the voters who vote in any direction. I'm not mad at any voter, and I don't feel like I'm not here to shame any voter for voting how they vote. I understand that's what democracy is, right? It's up to the politicians to convince voters in that they have earned their vote, right? And to earn the vote of the voters, they got to come to us. They got to meet us where we are. And so we have to demand more of these politicians. So that's how I feel. All right. Let's keep pushing forward with these stories because I got a lot I want to get to, and I'm getting to it today. So we're an hour and a half in. Plan to stream for about 3 hours probably. I want to keep it under 4. I have to keep it under 4, but I want to keep it under 3, I should say. So thank you so much to everyone that's here. I see that we've got, I see 11 people in here right now, but only eight likes. So please do me a favor if you haven't already, and I know at least 3 of you watching haven't. Hit that like button below. Press that like button. If you haven't already, also subscribe to the channel, please. It just pleases the YouTube algorithm. And also share the video. Share the video as wide as you can. And if you can afford it, throw me a few bucks on Patreon. That's at patreon.com/radical democracy. Please support the show. So thank you so much to everyone for being here. I want to see some more likes going up right now. I'm not seeing them. What are you doing? You better stop that. Hit that like button. You press that like button right now. All right. And I appreciate it. I really do. It helps. It just pleases the YouTube algorithm. You press that like button and more people will see the stream. So you're doing me a big favor and I really do appreciate it. I really, really do. I really appreciate it. So I see that we just got another like. Thank you so much to whoever did that. I really appreciate it. I should check our subscriber count as well, just to see how we're doing there. We passed 100 subs in our last stream, and now we are headed to 200 now. So it's exciting, and I would love for you to join me in that endeavor. And so please subscribe. All right. Next story up. All right. No new subscribers yet. Looks like we may have lost a subscriber. That's okay. Don't worry. All right. Let's see. Next story coming. Give me 1 sec just to set this up. Okay. Next story up. Okay, folks. Thank you for bearing with me. For our next story, we have the stock market, specifically the S&P 500, has hit an all-time high amidst an economic crisis and a global pandemic, mass unemployment, and yet we have the stock market hitting a record high. And so I would just like to highlight the disconnect between the stock market and the economic reality of the masses of people in this country. So I don't think anything tells the story better than the stock market itself right now. So we have an article here from New York Times, August 18th. This was by Reuters, and it says, it's titled, Big Tech Drives S&P 500 to Record High in Coronavirus Rally. The S&P 500 hit a record high on Tuesday, thanks largely to months of outperformance from Amazon and other heavyweight technology companies viewed by investors as likely to emerge from the coronavirus crisis stronger than smaller rivals. The widely followed index's most valuable companies have surged this year, with Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon each up between 33% and 72% year to date. That's 72%. Being up 72% means that you're almost doubled your market share. You've almost doubled your value as a company at that point. Like that's, whew. Okay. So, sorry about that. So let's So I'm going to show a couple of charts here just to help hammer that point home. But I mean, what we're seeing here is big tech is monopolizing power, and they're growing ever bigger and stronger in the midst of a pandemic. This is what I believe it's Naomi Klein or Nomi. I'm blanking on her name. She wrote some great books, and she used to be a Wall Street like executive, and I'm forgetting her last name, but it's Nomi Prince. So Nomi Prince, I think, coined the term. It was either Nomi Prince or Naomi Klein coined the term disaster capitalism, where these capitalists come in the midst of a disaster and they take advantage of that and they use it to further enrich themselves. So here we have, the stock market hitting a record high in the middle of mass unemployment, and what is shaping up to be the greatest depression in U.S. history. And yet, and still, the stock market is doing just fine. Crystal Ball from the Hills Rising often cites someone that she saw on Twitter or something or somewhere where they said that the stock market is a graph of rich people's feelings. And that's the best description I've ever seen of it, because that's all that it really is. It's speculative. It's 84% of the stock market is owned by 10% of the people in this country. So that's the top 10% of the country own 84% of the stock market. Over 50% is owned by the top 1%. So when you hear the stock market doing well or the stock market doing poorly, what that really means is rich people are doing well or rich people are doing poorly. And really what typically ends up happening is rich people do well when it goes up and everybody does bad when it goes down, because they let the damage trickle down. The good stuff doesn't trickle down. That never trickles down. But whenever damage is dealt, the suffering, that trickles on down. They make sure that all the working class people feel the suffering. So for instance, in the midst of this pandemic now, the response to this pandemic, what you're going to see is a bunch of employers who come in, and Richard Wolff talks about this, economist Richard Wolff talks about this, when he talks about how, he warns us of the existing class war that we're under, and how we're going to be fighting that class war, whether it's Joe Biden or Donald Trump that's in the office. And what these employers are going to do is now all of a sudden they have a massive labor force, a reserve labor force of unemployed people who are desperate, every month growing more and more desperate. And they just cut unemployment in the while all this is going on. And we're going to talk about Congress going off on a vacation in the middle of all of this. And we have here we have all of this economic destruction happening, and yet these the stock market is not impacted by the suffering of everyday people in any way, right? That's the disconnect that I really want to highlight, which is just that when they love to talk about this stat as if it's a measure, it's an economic indicator of how the economy at large is doing. So they'll say things like, oh, well, the GDP is doing well and the stock market is doing well. And what we really see right now is that, GDP at least is a slightly better indicator, because you can see the GDP contraction was historic. I did a story on that. You can check it out, about the historic GDP contraction of, nearly 35% contraction. It's just unlike anything, 3 times more than anything else at the worst point in our history that we've been tracking this. And at least that's a slightly better indicator. At least it's showing that there's clearly something, has disrupted the economy. The stock market, you wouldn't know otherwise. Look at the stock market right now, S&P 500. Look at that. We're record high. You would think that the economy is doing great, right? Isn't that what that means? The economy must be doing great if the stock market's doing well. But the reality is, this isn't a good economic indicator. The stock market isn't an indicator of working class people's reality and the reality for most of us, because most people, be real, how many of I'm willing to bet nobody really watching the show owns any stock. If you own any, you own a couple of bucks. Grandma gave you like some stocks too that she bought like back in like whatever, and you got a little like a couple of bonds, a couple of certificates or whatever, and you got your few stocks maybe. But most people, 99% of the people that I know do not own stocks. They, that's not the reality for them. They have no interest in that. They have no capability of participating in it, because you have to have disposable income to even get to that point, really. And so, the majority of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. 80% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. So this is, it's just not, people don't have the capacity for this. And so here we have just something glaring, just a glaring example of how the stock market is completely disconnected from the economic reality of the masses of people. And nothing could be more indicative of that than the fact that it is hitting an all-time high at the same time that people are suffering from, mass unemployment, and about 30 million Americans have just will experience this month a $2,400 reduction in their income. And that's going to be the majority of their income for most of those people. And so we're at the same time that the eviction moratorium has run out, Trump's executive order did nothing. I want to do an update on that, but his executive orders were essentially as toothless as they were expected to be. And they were pretty much just suggestions in a wish list of things that he wanted. The only thing that seemed to hold that actually went through was the student loan moratorium. So that seemed to go through, and that appears because he does seem to have the power to do that, the authority to do that. The other ones were mostly just suggestions to states to do stuff, and they're not capable of doing it or are unwilling to do it. And so most of those executive orders Trump signed are absolutely meaningless ultimately, and will just be a political ploy essentially. So, and shame on me for not being even clear on that and seeing that ahead of time and recognizing that ahead of time. I gave him even a little bit too much credit. I recognized that it was probably, a lot of it wasn't going to come to pass. We questioned the legality of a bunch of the orders. But I wish I had hammered that even more and really had the foresight to say, you know what, it just doesn't look like it has any real power behind it. And so that was that. So just wanted to highlight that the stock market means nothing to working class people, and it's totally disconnected from the reality of our economy. And when you hear stats about the stock market doing well, like, divorce that from the economic reality of the masses of people, and just no, it's just a graph of rich people's feelings, really. Okay, so I missed. Okay, so Mark McKeever, a comment from Mark McKeever. He says, today's announcement of nearly 1 million unemployment filings last week is the real world indicator that reflects our economy. Yes, absolutely. That is a much better real world indicator for certain. And I missed the unemployment stats. I was just doing other research for the show. And so I try to make a note of it and set just a mental reminder on Thursdays. Every Thursday, the Department of Labor releases statistics on the weekly unemployment claims filed for the nationwide. And what Mark McKeever is saying here, I don't have a chance to confirm right now, but let me see. Let me see the exact. Okay, wow. So they're back above 1 million. So you said, so when Mark said nearly 1 million, I thought that he was meaning slightly below 1 million, which means if it's over 1 million, that's an increase from last week. So that's an increase over last week. So it says 1.1 million filed initial unemployment benefits claims in the week ending August 15th. So, oh, this is really bad article. Sorry. I can't pull it up for you, I think. But 1.1 million. Here, let's try. Let's see. Okay. So this is from Forbes. It says initial U.S. unemployment claims rose back above 1 million last week. Rose back above 1 million last week, reversing the downward trend we'd seen in prior reports. Exactly. So this is a reversal of the recent trend. It just suddenly had been decreasing, and for the first time in 4 months, in over 12 weeks, 16 weeks, and for the first time in 4 months, it finally dipped below 1 million, which they were celebrating that, but. And okay, let me just read through the rest of this, and then we'll talk about a little bit more about it. But key U.S. unemployment numbers, it says 1.1 million filed initial unemployment benefit claims in the week ending August 15th. Initial claims jumped by 135,000 from the previous week. 14.8 million received continuing unemployment benefits for the week ending August 8th. And now 11 states have been approved by FEMA for a $300 weekly federal unemployment benefit. So it'll be interesting to see which 13 states those are. I hope, for my personal sake, that Massachusetts is one of them, because I rely on unemployment, and I've literally had to withdraw from courses for next semester because I can't afford to go to school next semester, because there's no guarantee, and they keep on playing games with this unemployment. There's just no guarantee of it, and I'm already up against it and didn't even have enough money saved, was denied student loan, financial aid. And so based on the amount of money that I made in 2018, unfortunately. And so that's just that. So I rely on unemployment right now, and would love any amount more than what they're giving us right now. So all right. So thank you for that information, Mark. That was a good aside, because that's an important indicator there. The unemployment numbers, it's 1.1 million is. These are historic numbers. At the height of the Great Recession, at the worst point that the weekly unemployment claims reached during the height of the Great Recession was 625,000. Prior to that, the worst record in U.S. history prior to 2020, the worst record in history was 695,000. That was as bad as it had ever gotten. 695,000 in a single week, at the very worst we had ever tracked in our economy. Since March, it has only dipped below 1 million one time, essentially, which was last week. It dipped below 1 million for the first time, and that was like celebrated. Oh, we went below 1 million. It was still like 900 and some odd thousand, which is like practically 1 million, and still worse than anything in the history of the country if you just ignore the last 4 months that we've experienced. And they're out here like writing happy, pleasant, celebratory headlines about this, when really people should be still in awe and shock and just horrified by the fact that over 1 million new people are filing claims. And let me tell you, it is. I'm in the middle. I've been removed from unemployment now. This is this whole messy system, and they do everything they can to push you off the unemployment rolls. And so I've been pushed off right now, and I have to go reapply, and there's all this jumping through hoops. And in fact, I was supposed to call them. I'm gonna have to call them tomorrow and deal with this tomorrow. And it's one of the reasons that I haven't been able to get as much content out recently, has in fact been because I've been dealing with the unemployment offices, and it's so stressful. It's just like it's draining, and like you just feel so drained and worn out and frustrated by the end of these calls, and nobody can help you, and they're overwhelmed at the office, and they've never had to deal with this many unemployment claims, and they're just pushing people off the rolls, and they have all these verification processes, and the appeals take like 6 weeks, and you're waiting, and it's just like, it's such a mess. And the real solution to all this, let's be real here, universal basic income, right? If we had a universal basic income, what folks like Kyle Kalinske calls Social Security for all, you just give it to every person. The same way we have Social Security, we want to do Medicare for all, we should do Social Security for all. You get every person in the country receives a Social Security check every month, every week, however we want to do it. But every person in the country receives a Social Security check. You pay in as you work, and you receive your Social Security check, and that's your universal basic income. That's your Social Security. Sorry about the doorbell there if you heard that. So that's your Social Security. And so that's what it should be, universal basic income across the board. Then you don't have, and if you have a Social Security card, or let's be real, a taxpayer identification number for any immigrant folks, you should receive a universal basic income in this country. So if you have one of those two things, you should receive. Hey, personally, I'd like it to be just every person, whatever, you just show up, you got to weigh, like, even if you're not documented, I want every person. I truly do. I want every person to be able to receive that. If you're living in this country, you should have it. If you're existing in this country, you should be able to be afforded that right. And so I would like to see that. I would like to see a universal basic income. And that's the real solution. Then you don't have all the red tape. You don't have to do this, like, who's qualified, who's not. Everybody would be getting it. And just the way that the IRS just cut a check to everybody, the $1,200 stimulus check, that one-time check, the IRS clearly just showed its ability to just cut a check to everybody in the country, do that same system, and just start cutting checks every month. $2,000 a month to every single person over the age of 16 in the country, period. That's it. And you could do something like an extra 1,000, or I say 2,000 a month for every child that you have as well. You know, like just something like that. It's basic until they're 16 years old. So the parent will collect for the children and just help everybody else out. Like that's, you know, $1,000 for every additional child, at least a month. I mean, I'm thinking 2,000, but whatever. And so that's the real solution here. And all right. So next story. We're nearing the 2-hour mark. Thank you to everyone that's been here. Totally understandable if you're dropping in and out as we're doing these stories. I know this is a pretty long stream, and my goal is to just get through all the stories, and so we can get the clips up after the fact. And so I'm going to get through a few more stories here now, and we'll see how much we get through up till about the 3-hour mark, and then we'll probably cut it around there. Okay, so we got about another hour left on the show. Thank you so much to everyone that's here. If you haven't already, please do me a favor, hit the like button below. If you're on here on YouTube, you have to be, because I'm only streaming this onto YouTube. So hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell to receive notifications whenever we go live or launch a new video. And if you can't afford it, do me a massive favor and support independent Black left media by heading over to patreon.com/radical democracy and just dropping me a few dollars, you know, whatever you can afford monthly, a few dollars a month. It makes a world of difference. $1 a month, honestly, whatever you can afford. I deeply appreciate it. And it really will help the show to continue to exist and to grow. And I do intend to build this as a democratic worker cooperative. And so you are supporting that movement. You are supporting that cause. So please do me that favor and support independent Black left socialist media. Patreon.com/radical democracy. I appreciate you so much. Even if you don't agree with me on everything, support it. All the liberals out there, support. All right, so let's get to another story here. Okay, what else do we got? Oh, sorry, that's my phone buzzing. Glad that wasn't in the middle of a... Couple more comments here. Mark McKeever says, I heard high 900,000s. Thanks for the clarification. No problem at all. No problem at all. That was referring to the weekly unemployment numbers. So thank you for pointing that out. It slipped my mind to check the unemployment numbers and just completely slipped my mind this morning. So thank you for reminding me. Mark McKeever says, give it to President Sump Pump. He's able to sell this facade of a healthy economy to his uneducated masses. It's disconcerting, to say the least. Yeah, I think like he's still somehow able to right now, Donald Trump is polling higher than Joe Biden on the issue of the economy. When polled on the issue of the economy, they say, who do you think is better for the economy? Right now, Donald Trump is polling higher than Joe Biden on that question. So that just shows you, in the midst of all of this, people they trust Joe Biden less than they trust Donald Trump with this economy. Are you kidding me? And look what he's done. He's oversaw like the worst economic crisis in the history of the United States, and people still have higher confidence in him than they have on Joe Biden. That's not a good sign, folks. That's not a good sign. That should scare people for this upcoming election. That should worry you. That should really worry you. They are way too close in battleground states right now. So yeah, way too close. All right. Start setting up this next story here. Take a couple more comments if they come in. All right. Yep, I see another one. What Up America says, my parents were crying joy over Obama and Kamala speeches. It was so jarring when you know how much terrible things both of them are accountable for. Yeah, like it's our parents' generation is just, it's a lost generation, to be honest. Like there's some of them, don't get me wrong. We got some older progressives, some older leftists that have been fighting the good fight much longer than we have. And shout out to all of them there. I know some, Vietnam vets that are, like socialist leftists, like they are really progressive folks that are fighting the good fight on the right side of history. So no disrespect to any of that older generation. I'm sure it sucks to be a part of that older generation and have to deal with your peers just like the surreality, the surrealness of seeing people like just have this like cognitive dissonance where they don't recognize all the damage, the untold damage that these folks are responsible for. And so it's like Obama dealt so much damage, and Black Lives Matter started under Obama, and he was the reporter in chief, and I Can't Breathe, Eric Garner, and there was not justice for those people under Obama, and then drone bombing increasing, continuing the never-ending wars, Libya. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Weakness on the issue of Palestine and Palestinian rights. I mean, he's just. Yeah, so it's unfortunate. And Kamala and her record, I did a whole video on that. I did another one with Kwame from Racist Media. We did a whole breakdown of Kamala Harris and her record. You can check that out at Racist Media on YouTube and see some more of my thoughts on that there. All right, let's get going to the next story. Let's see what we have next. Oh, yes. All right, this should be a quicker one. Okay. Another comment just from Mark McKeever. He says, love my father, but mainstream media has sold him. He believes what those actors tell them. Yeah, that's what they grew up on. And I don't begrudge them or blame them necessarily. If that's what you grew up on and everything, it's been reinforced in their ideology that like you can trust in the mainstream media. This is where you get real news from. This is where you get the real facts from. And they've been propagandized to effectively for so long. It's what Noam Chomsky talks about in manufacturing consent. They've had their consent manufactured, and it's not their fault necessarily. We've benefited from independent media. I got lucky. I was centrist until I found independent media, honestly. And I mean, lucky, but also it's the time, and this was the right time where you can, through the internet and just having more access to people, I think that it's made it so that we have the privilege of like being able to break free of mainstream media and get our news from reliable independent sources where they put their biases. Like we wear our biases in independent media. We wear our bias on our sleeves. We don't pretend like we're neutral, and really we try to call ourselves objective, but we're being neutral on every issue. Like I'm not going to lie to you and pretend I'm neutral on these issues. I'm not neutral. I'm a socialist. I'm a leftist. I have an ideology that I would like to see, made into reality. I'm not going to hide that from you. I am biased, and when you watch this channel, you should consume it with the understanding that I have a bias. Like Noam Chomsky says, everyone has an axe to grind. You have to know what that axe is, what is their biases, and you take in information from a lot of different sources, and then you use all of those sources, and you use your own, reasoning in order to develop your own conclusions from that. And that's how a democracy is going to thrive and function. We have to have a well-informed citizenry. And so that's required in a democracy. And so we have to properly inform people. And the only way we're going to properly inform people is by uplifting independent media and allowing these platforms to become megaphones for working class peoples and to really uplift these issues and put these issues on the forefront and, shift the Overton window so that we can have these discussions. And it's not these discussions. The discussion on mainstream media has been narrowed down so far where the bounds are just so narrow of what's acceptable to talk about. They consider like a $15 minimum wage like radical. And it's just like, if we kept up with inflation, it would be $22 an hour. What the hell is radical about 15? I was saying like back in like 2016, I was like, we need to start pushing right now for 20 in 2020. Like we should stop with the fight for 15 and start talking about 20 in 2020, because that's the real amount. Like it should be at least $20. Why do we keep on fighting for like less than a like that's not like a sustainable wage right there. That can't buy you rent you a 1-bedroom apartment, the minimum wage, in most places in the country. And like, you're going to be just barely scraping by on $15 an hour in most places. And so $20 an hour, it should be more than that. People shouldn't be just scraping by working 40 hours a week. Never that. Like, that 40 hours a week is way too much anyways. You damn sure shouldn't be scraping by or having to work a second job. That's absurd. So, all right, next story up. We've got all right, next story up. So, in the midst of an economic crisis, global pandemic, mass unemployment, Congress has gone on vacation. This is a piece in the World Socialist from the World Socialist website. I know it's not mainstream outlet where I typically will grab news from and references from, but that's because they haven't been discussing this in the mainstream media enough for me to find a good article on it, sadly. So I'm going to use the World Socialist website here. And they say Congress adjourns for month-long vacation without action on U.S. unemployment crisis. So this was published August 14th by Patrick Martin on the World Socialist website. And it says, in an action that demonstrates the bipartisan contempt of both corporate parties, Democrats and Republicans, for the interests of the vast majority of working people, the U.S. Congress went into a month-long recess Thursday, taking no action to alleviate the worst economic and public health crisis in a century. The Democratic-controlled House of Representatives began its August recess last weekend, while the Republican-controlled Senate held brief daily sessions until Thursday before taking its own recess. The Senate is not scheduled to return until Tuesday, September 8th, the day after the Labor Day holiday, while the House will be on vacation even longer until Monday, September 14th. So, I mean, what's there to say about this? Look at this. I mean, there's 535 people in this country, 435 in Congress plus 100 in the Senate that have the authority to do something about this unemployment crisis. There are 535 people in the entire country who can do something about this right now. And in the midst of this economic crisis, what those 535 people have collectively decided to do is to go on vacation. Is to go off on vacation. And in the midst of all of these, all of this strife and in the midst of a crisis, they have taken off for a month-long vacation to do what? Here we have, they've refused to pass legislation, particularly in the Senate. The House passed legislation that would have provided some economic stimulus. It's called the HEROES Act, I believe. And they passed legislation in the House, which has by and large been known that it wasn't going to pass through the Senate, sadly, because it's not even a radical bill. It's just like the bare minimum. It extended the $600 federal pandemic unemployment compensation until the end of the year. It did not provide another one-time stimulus. It should have provided a monthly UBI. I believe actually it may have provided a one-time stimulus. It did not include a UBI, a monthly stimulus payment for the rest of people, because what about all the people that aren't managing to get onto unemployment or aren't technically unemployed, but still need a hand up or to be protected from, falling down in the midst of this crisis? Like, they deserve to be protected as well, but they're getting nothing right now. And so it's even worse if you don't qualify for unemployment right now, but you don't have a job and you're facing, possibly eviction and, hunger and all kinds of issues that one can be facing at this point. and having to navigate a pandemic in the middle of all of that. And you got the people, the most powerful people, who get paid $3,000, over $3,000 a week. They get $175,000 a year. They get $3,000 a week in order to turn around and tell us that we can't get $600 a week, you know? So we pay these people so much money to then just turn around and deny us our rights. And here they are off on vacation. Are y'all on vacation right now? Are other people taking vacations right now? Like, I don't know anybody taking month-long vacations right now from work. Like, who can do that? And of all the people to be doing that, the 535 people who have all the power in the country to actually do something about the economic crisis, and they've gone off on vacation, like, and we're going to see they're willing to come back from vacation, but we're going to see what the reasons are why they're willing to come back from vacation. What will they do? What will get them back from vacation versus what won't? All right. So just wanted to point that out. This is really gross, and just something that this happened about a week ago. This story really broke, and I just hadn't had a chance to bring it up, and I really wanted to. So just to highlight that this is what's going on here. And we should be outraged by this. This is something to be outraged by. These people have the power to pass legislation, particularly in the Senate, that would give some economic relief that is literally just enough to keep the economy from completely collapsing in on itself at this point. And they're not even willing to do that because they're so married to their destructive ideology. And this is both parties. Let's be real. Republicans and Democrats. I don't care that the Democrats passed in the House. You see that they're willing to come back, and they're willing to, come back. We'll talk about that soon, what they're willing to come back to vote on, but they won't come back and reconvene for this. What if America says, if this was 17th century France, those leaders would likely face the gallows? Exactly. Like, people that did shit like this in revolutionary times, a lot of these people, these powerful people, these powerful elites, they got their heads separated from the rest of their bodies by the masses of working class people that were pissed off and fed up with this bullshit and sick and tired of having to beg for crumbs from these people. And so what we're talking about is just like political revolution and stuff. And it's just the bare minimum stuff. And even that just is too radical to these people. And I just I fear that they will push it so far that there's no other choice for working class people but a bloody revolution instead of a political revolution, because you get one or you get the other, but you're going to get a revolution. You keep on exacerbating wealth inequality and just spit in the faces of the working class peoples, and eventually you get enough outrage that shit happens. And so I would prefer a non-violent, revolution. I don't know one to have existed really, but I'd love to see it happen. I just don't know how possible it is, and if it's going to be possible under the conditions that they're currently creating in this society. Mark McKeever says, most of our reps in the House and their donors are doing well. There's a massive disconnection with the real world, but it makes for great TV during the DNC convention. Shaking my head. Exactly. Like, the DNC convention was such a travesty. I don't know who would, suffered through watching all of that. Props to you if you did. I couldn't do it. I watched little clips here and there and watched Tim Black's, analysis of it. And that was the most I could do. It's just, it's all pomp and circumstance and pandering and platitudes, and it's garbage and it's meaningless. And they will do all that, but they will do nothing to actually help working class people. And Mark McKeever is absolutely right. They're totally disconnected from the reality for the vast majority of them, from their constituents. They just do not recognize the reality for most of their constituents. And I don't think that it's appropriate that our leaders, so-called leaders in Congress, are going on vacation in the midst of an economic crisis, a month-long vacation. It's totally inappropriate. Okay. I wish I had a happy story to do today so that I could lighten up the mood here for us, but I don't think that's gonna happen, sadly. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm gonna mix in some happier stories into all of this stuff. I really do want to. I have a story I want to highlight. A progressive candidate that's running in Massachusetts, Issane Leckie, and hopefully I can do a nice positive story for Issane Leckie. Although some BS happened recently, with her campaign, not from her, but with just some of the same BS that I've seen happen similar to the Shahid Buttar situation, really reminiscent of some aspects of the Alex Morse smear job that we're going to get into very soon. And it just bugs me. That stuff just bugs me, and it's unfortunate. It's saying like he's running for Joe Kennedy's old seat in Congress, the one that he just vacated to run for Senate, and it would be amazing to get a real progressive in there, and she is that. And so we'll talk more about her and hopefully get to do some positive stuff and be happy about stuff. I like being happy. I swear I do. All righty. Next story up. Let's do it. Oh, and let's just, before I move on, one more thing on this. I just wanted to just do an update of sort of in relation to this Congress taking a vacation. I just want to do a quick reminder of where we are with our sort of with the economic situation right now as our Congress is on vacation. Let's just take a quick look at what that, you know, where's the economy at right now? Okay. Okay, so this is from CNBC.com, and so it's from an article titled "Where Stimulus Talks Stand Now That Senate Has Adjourned for August." So this is in relation to the Senate adjourning. They said, where does the economy essentially stand? So on the eviction moratorium, the federal eviction moratorium expired at the end of July. Without further action, it is up to each state and sometimes city to extend their eviction moratoriums or let them expire. New York State just extended its ban through September. So depending on where you are, your eviction moratorium may have likely expired at the end of July and has not been replaced, and you are now subject to eviction. And just a reminder, one in every 3 households in the US were unable to make full rent payments for the past 4 months straight. So not having an eviction moratorium means a true risk of mass homelessness in this country, as if we don't already have it with over 500,000 people homeless. Trump's executive order aimed at eviction does not actually extend the moratorium. Rather, it instructs certain departments to consider whether temporarily banning residential evictions is reasonably necessary to prevent further spread of COVID-19. So this is like leaving it up to certain departments to then make the decision, you know, if you feel like it, you know, let some people not be evicted. We all know who this will disproportionately damage, you know, Black and brown communities, immigrant communities, of course. They say as many as 40 million Americans could face eviction, according to Emily Benfer, an expert on evictions and health justice lawyer. 40 million Americans could face eviction. That's a crisis. Stimulus checks. A second round of stimulus checks seems to be one of the less controversial provisions. Senate Republicans and House Democrats both proposed another round of $1,200 to $2,400 checks in their respective stimulus packages. So they've proposed them. Nothing has happened about this. But any additional check requires congressional approval, which means taxpayers wouldn't receive a payment anytime soon. All right. So no stimulus payment coming anytime soon. Student loans. So this was the one thing that seemed to work from Trump's orders. Trump also ordered the Department of Education to continue deferring federal student loan payments through the end of the year. During that time, no interest will accrue for around 35 million borrowers. The pause is intended to be automatic, as was the initial deferral put into place by the CARES Act. So this actually seemed to go through. This seemed to work. We talked about that earlier. This actually, the student loan payment moratorium seemed to actually go through. That was based on Trump's executive orders. So he did do something decent there. That was one decent thing from his from his executive orders that Congress was not able to get. So, you know, golf clap for him on that, at least. And I'm somebody that has student loan debt. So, you know, unemployment insurance. One of Trump's executive orders guarantees $300 per week in additional federal benefits for some workers, and potentially $400 total, depending on how much money states have to give. But UI experts, unemployment insurance experts, and state governors say it could take weeks for states to update their unemployment systems for the new rules and pay out benefits. So I'm on unemployment. Nothing has been indicated that, and I know a lot of people on unemployment. There's been no indication that in Massachusetts, at least, that this $300 or $400 weekly federal benefit is even active in any way. So until that kicks in or Congress comes to a deal, the 28 million people currently collecting jobless benefits will receive their baseline state benefits, which varies depending on where they live. And trust me, it is not a lot, and it's barely a subsistence for a lot of people. So that's that. That's our updated status of the economy there. So I just wanted to do that quick update on there too. And just to show this is the reality that we face as Congress goes off to go on vacation. So these are our leaders. These are our leaders here, folks. We got to do better. We got to demand better from these people and just push on these issues and fight like hell and, you know, work to get real progressives elected and fight in other ways, in other arenas. It can't all be electoral politics because it's such an uphill climb in electoral politics. The system has been created and is so powerful that it's really, really hard to break through. And so we got to fight and resist in other ways. And that's what this channel is about, truly. And what I'm trying to do here is to build a democratic workplace, to build an anti-capitalist workplace, and start to build socialism from the ground up. The way that, honestly, every economic system that in history that has taken hold has started that way, through, in the midst of feudalism, capitalism started up, and it started up in small little pockets and merchants and people trying to do that. And it was quashed and fought against, and it kept on bubbling up until it rose up and became the dominant force. Same thing, you know, for, you know, from feudalism, slavery, and just these things, they manifest first in small pockets of the economy until they grow enough power, gain enough power, and then eventually can become the dominant economic system. So that's how I feel like is the best way to contribute. And if you want to contribute to that, please do me a favor, and you can head over to patreon.com/radical democracy and donate a few dollars, and it is deeply appreciated, deeply appreciated. So shout out to all my Patreon patrons. Thank you so much for supporting the show. You are all amazing, and I appreciate you so much. And just thank you for keeping that going. I am trying to get a quick check of the Patreon page, but something weird is happening with Patreon, sadly, so I cannot check Patreon right now, unfortunately. Let me see if I can get to my page. Interesting. Oh no, I think we lost a patron. Oh no. Sadly, I think we lost a patron, folks. Sorry. Shout out to everyone that donated, though. I understand if folks can't donate, can't afford it. I totally understand. We're in the midst of a pandemic. I really do want to keep this channel going and growing, and in order to do it, unfortunately, it is going to require some funding, and so it has to come from the community because I don't have anywhere else to get funding from. I'm unemployed, and I love doing this, and I really want to keep this going. So if you can please help me out and head over to patreon.com/radical democracy and sign up and donate a few dollars a month. It means a lot and will help the channel to continue to exist. So thank you so much to all my Patreon patrons and to everyone else that becomes one. Thank you so much. Okay, let's get to our next story. That's a bit of a bummer, so I'm a little bummed out that I lost a patron, but I know that's going to happen. It's just going to happen, folks. Doing what they can, and I appreciate it. I appreciate everyone doing what they can. Okay. Set up our next story. We're approaching 2.5 hours. Really trying to keep this under 3. I think the next story takes a little while, but that's okay. It's going to be a little bit of a longer one. Thank you so much to everyone, by the way, who's here. If you haven't already, please do me a huge favor and hit the like button. It takes 2 seconds, and it does me, this channel, a huge favor, helps us to grow. Hit that like button. It should be like down there somewhere. And if you're watching this on your phone, just close out the chat, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell to receive notifications if that's not too annoying. And you'll get a notification anytime we go live or launch a new video. Whenever you see those notifications, please click through on them. Check out the video. Even if you watch for a few seconds, honestly, given that view, given that click through is what pleases the algorithm, and it will help more people see YouTube will recommend it to more people if I have a higher click through rate on the videos. And so when you see the notification, please click. And even if you can't watch it right then and there, give it a like, save it to your watch later playlist, and come back and check it out later. But does do the channel a huge favor and helps grow the channel by clicking on those notifications when you see them. So if you do receive the notifications, if you're going to sign up to receive the notifications, please check them. That goes a long way to help. So that's a great way to support the channel. Thank you so much to everyone that does that. I really, really deeply appreciate you all. Thank you so much. Okay, next story up. Okay, this I hope to be a quick one, and then we'll get to the Alex Moore story. I kept sneaking other stories into this stream, and so I kept filling up. I had the Alex Moore story was supposed to come sooner, but too much stuff to talk about, so we got to talk about it. All right. Sorry, 1 second, just grabbing the next story here. Okay. Oh, I just realized I did that story earlier. Oh, I'm so upset. I did a story earlier. I forgot to show you the charts that I promised I would show you about big tech consolidating power when we talked about the S&P 500. So I am sorry about that. I really wanted to show off those charts and I didn't get a chance to, but I'll cut them in to the video probably in post. So I apologize for that, but there were some great charts just to show that the big tech was monopolizing power even further. And I really would like to show off those charts. Okay, sorry, just finding this. Okay, whew. Took everything apart. All right. This is an update to a story that I did a few days ago or a week ago or so in what people were calling the Friday Night Massacre. Trump's Postmaster General Louis DeJoy had done a shakeup at the USPS and then following that, there was a lot of news about how they were starting to remove mail sorting machines and mailboxes all across the country, weakening the U.S. Postal Service's ability to process mail right ahead of an election, which is causing a lot of, outrage. I think a lot of it justified and some of it maybe not so much. But so I wanted to do an update on the story and then make a bit of a correction on something that I had said last time. So give me 1 second. Okay, so here we go. Postmaster General Louis DeJoy announced Tuesday that he was suspending long-standing operational initiatives at the United States Postal Service amid fears that the changes could delay election mail this fall in the middle of the pandemic. To avoid even the appearance of any impact on election mail, I am suspending these initiatives until after the election is concluded, DeJoy said in a statement. In his statement, DeJoy asserted that mail processing equipment and blue collection boxes will remain where they are and that overtime has and will continue to be approved as needed. DeJoy's statement does not address whether changes that have already been made, like removed equipment or changes in operational practices, would be rolled back. So this is so essentially what's happening here is Louis DeJoy has sort of backtracked on the moves that he was making that were, frightening a lot of people. I would say rightfully so for the most part, into just the fears of like, hey, they're damaging the U.S. Postal Service and weakening the U.S. Postal Service, and also endangering the mail-in vote. And so, definitely a serious issue. And I just wanted to give this update because it does look like after a lot of public outrage that was enough to at least get them to nominally backtrack and say that they'll at least backtrack, and ostensibly they're backtracking on those moves. And now, the things should stay as they are. At least, the status quo should be maintained from here on out. Now, they say they don't know if he's going to reverse the damage that's already been done, the removal of the sorting machines and all that. Maybe it's already enough that they've already dealt enough damage that he feels comfortable with it. Who knows, honestly. I know that I don't trust these people. He's apparently this guy has millions of dollars in stock ownership of other private mail companies like UPS, I believe, and not directly, but through his funds that he controls. And so these, he has personal investment in a personal conflict of interest, really, with the United States Postal Service, because he essentially has part ownership over some of the competitors of the USPS. So it's really gross, and he's a mega donor to the Trump campaign. And these people certainly aren't to be trusted. And he looks to be trying to damage the United States Postal Service just to weaken, again, to actually do damage to the vote, and then also to just help to privatize the USPS. And when I did the story last week on the Friday, it's called the title of the video is Friday Night Massacre at the USPS. Maybe I can post a, link to it here or something, but maybe not. I'll try. And it's called, so it's Friday Night Massacre at USPS. And in that video, I talked about how my focus was really on the Republicans and the damage that the Republican Party has dealt to the United States Postal Service over time, and trying to connect this and historicize it and connect it to the longtime effort of what I was saying was the Republican Party to deal damage to the United States Postal Service in order to weaken it, and ultimately to make it easier to weaken it enough so that it can be privatized. And I was incorrect in stating that. In fact, thanks to Lee Camp, and a video that I watched just this morning of Lee Camp reporting on this, he clarified for me that it actually wasn't just a Republican effort. This was a bipartisan effort to destroy the United States Postal Service. And we should not forget that. And we cannot forget that. So while all of these, establishment Democrats are out there feigning outrage right now, we should keep it in the front of our minds that they helped to do the damage that has been done to the United States Postal Service. So all these longstanding Congress people, they all voted in favor of a bill that created a rule that forced the United States Postal Service to have to fund their pensions, employee pensions, 75 years in advance, which means that they were forced to fund pensions for employees who hadn't even been born yet. And they're the only institution in the entire United States that is required to fund employee pensions in this way. So it was not a 100% Republican effort. In fact, it was bipartisan. there were two Democrats, and I don't have their names on me because unfortunately I just got this information this morning, and I already had a bunch of stories, and I just crammed this one in. And so there were two Democrats who introduced the bill, co-sponsor introduced that bill to force that rule on the USPS. And then the actual legislation was voted on in Congress and was unanimously 100% voted in favor of by the Democrats in Congress. And so all Democrats, and including Bernie Sanders also voted in favor of this bill to force the USPS to fund 75 years of pensions in advance. And I don't know what their reasoning behind it was. Honestly, I respect Bernie in a lot of ways, but he makes mistakes. He's voted incorrectly on legislation in the past. He is not perfect. He's not a deity, and he is prone to making mistakes like anyone else. And so I could see how this could be used politically to frame it as, oh, well, if you don't vote in favor of this bill, you're anti-worker. Now, I would like to see somebody principled enough and with enough foresight to stand up and push back against that and say, no, it's not anti-worker to say you don't have to fund it 75 years in advance. I understand it's saying fund your employee pension program, right? It should always be funded for, I don't know how many ever employees you have that are coming up for pension, for pension soon. You should have to guarantee that. And there should, 10 years in advance, 20 years in advance. But the number shouldn't be 75. And whatever the number is, it should apply to every single institution and company, private and public. And so this is, the doing that to the USPS was uniquely damaging to the United States Postal Service, and they should have had the foresight to know that in advance and not make that mistake. And so it's not just the Republicans that have been destroying the United States Postal Service. We need to be clear. The Democrats had a major hand in that and played a major role in that, and they all voted in favor of the legislation that ultimately brought us to this point where it's weakened so much that they can do this. It's been under attack since then. And they've been able to point to it and say, look, it's not working out well. And people start to actually be propagandized to and start believing that, well, I guess this means that the Postal Service is inefficient and ineffective. And we need to privatize it, apparently. That's the solution. And so that wasn't just a Republican doing, that was the Democrats as well. And we need to give credit where credit is due, including on the bad stuff. And so give blame where blame is due. And that's the Democrats definitely sharing that for damaging the USPS. And so I apologize for not pointing that out on my original stream. And I just wanted to clarify that and make that correction now that, we're revisiting this topic. So, all right. And that is that. Moving along. Shout out to everyone that's still here and sticking it out with me. I really appreciate it. It's been way too long, and I am trying to get these things to be more and more concise, but we've gotten more stories in today than we did yesterday, and not too distracted by comments. I know I do. I just love hearing from y'all. Love hearing from the community. So just stop being so interesting if you want me to stop reading your comments, okay? All right, so here we go. Next story up. Oh, before we move on, we have to talk about this. One other thing to mention on this USPS story. Got to bring in one more resource here. Okay. Okay. This is from ABC News, and it says here, after House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said over the weekend she would call the House back this week, a senior House Democratic aide told ABC News Monday that the House is expected to vote Saturday on a measure that will include $25 billion in new funding for the post office. So This is in an ABC News article titled House Democrats Push Saturday Vote on $25 billion in Postal Service Aid. So, and it's not clear the House bill will ever get a vote in the GOP controlled Senate. So here we have the House, the House of Representatives coming back to Congress to vote, and they're willing to come back to vote on a bill that might not even pass in the Senate, but they want to push this because they want to signal, they want a virtue signal to the constituents that they are pro-democracy and they are, for, they are fighting for democracy here. And they want to virtue signal that. And so they're willing to come back and vote on legislation that likely won't even pass because it's not going to, the Senate's not coming back and they're not going to do anything about it. So the House can pass whatever they want. The Senate's not going to pass a damn thing. So it's likely to not even pass the Senate, but they're willing to bring everybody back from their vacation, from their little vacation. They're willing to bring everybody back so that they can vote on this bill that to undo the damage they already caused, but they can't bring everybody back and start to fight and hammer out legislation that would actually pass in the Senate as well, right? Because that's what they need to do. They can pressure the Senate the same way they're trying to pressure the Senate with this bill, pressure the Senate with an economic stimulus package, like pressure the Senate with that. You should be there, holding meetings and holding committees and doing whatever you have to do to ensure that working class Americans get an economic stimulus. And instead they're over here doing, virtue signal votes instead of doing anything substantive here. And so they're willing to come back for this vote, but they're not willing to come back to fight for an economic stimulus or to just actually fight for that in general. And so I know people will take issue with that. They'll say, oh, well, the House already passed a bill, the HEROES Act. Yeah, well, I don't care because it didn't pass and it's not been made legislation. And so they should be there working because, everybody else is just, they wish they could be working right now. And we're all doing what we can do to do our part. And so they need to do their part. And they have the power and the ability to actually enact change in this country. And they're sitting on their hands right now. And so, yes, I do blame them, the Democrats, for not pushing further, and for the Democrats in the Senate to not all be like, we're going to all show up at the Senate and we're going to meet. And if the Republicans don't want to come here and show up, then that's going to be an abdication of duty for them, and call them out on that and expose that and have all the news camera and the mainstream media show up there and record your committee meetings and hold committee meetings and hold conferences and whatever else you have to do to shame the Republicans into showing up in Congress and voting on this damn economic stimulus package to provide to prevent the economy from just completely collapsing in on itself. This is just like bare minimum stuff that you have to do. And so people, they have to provide this. They need people need the help. They need to provide this in some way. And so, and they're the only people that have the power to do it. So they should come in and they should step in and be pushing for this. And the Senate, the Democrats in the Senate should be pushing on it and embarrassing the Republicans and calling them out by name. Show up in their district if you have to. Do whatever you have to do to, bring it to their front steps and shame them into having to show up for the American people and show up for their constituents. And if they don't, at least you did. At least you did. All right. So I do have some other stories I want to get to so bad, but unfortunately, let me be real. My roommate just got home and I think he's doing some dishes in the background there. And so there's going to be some noise being made here for a while. Tammy, would you be able to listen in and tell me if you can hear? I'm almost certain you're going to be able to hear the banging in the background. If anyone's still listening to me, if you can let me know if you can hear that clanging in the background. I don't want to do whole segments with that noise going on, so I'm going to have to wait and come back. I don't have enough comments to get through here, so I kind of think I'm going to end this stream and have to come back and do. I really want to get to this Alex Moore story. I have to get to it soon, but I just don't. I don't think that I can do it right now with the noise in the background. Unfortunately, sorry about that. This is just help me, get enough funding that I can get a space to do this in. So I need your help. Patreon.com/radical democracy. Help me get some soundproofing at least, or something. We can figure this out. We will make this work so that we can keep this thing going. But I need your help. I need your support. Patreon.com/radical democracy. Please head over there. Drop me a few dollars. We have a total of 6 patrons right now for contributing $34 a month. I need to get to at least $500 a month just to be able to survive on this channel alone, on just doing this work. really it's closer to at least $1,000 a month to really not be struggling to get by, because there's taxes and all that sort of stuff that has to come out of it once you make over like $600 a month or something like that, or whatever. Yeah. So, you know, $1,000 a month is probably the real target that I'm heading for, you know, aiming for. I know it's not easy. I know we're a tiny community. It's not all on each individual. You do whatever little bit you can do if you can do it. And I totally understand if you can't, you know, do whatever else you can to help. If you can, hit the like button, subscribe, share the video far and wide. And that really helps the channel to grow. So I do appreciate everyone for being here. Thank you so much. All right. I want to do this. I want to do this Alex Morse video, and it's a really important piece, but I can't do it if the audio is going to be screwed up, because then I'm not going to be able to fix it in post. And so just to give you a little bit of the behind the scenes here, unfortunately, I don't think that I'm going to be able to do this stream because it's going to have some light background noise going, and I'm going to have to wait. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this stream off. I'm going to end this stream now, and then I will come back later and finish the stream and do another stream if I can, once things quiet down in here. Shout out to my roommate. I love you. He's helps me have a shelter, and we call it, you know, I'm staying at his place. Buddy of mine from high school, one of my best friends, you know, just lets me stay at his place because I'm not housing secure and I can't afford rent. And if I didn't have him, I would be living on the street somewhere, or, you know, camping on another friend's couch somewhere, and it just wouldn't be a good situation. And so I deeply, deeply appreciate it. Shout out to my roommate and, you know, best friend, one of my best friends, who helps the brother out like that. And so thank you so much. Not going to call him out by name because he has not given me permission to do so. So I will not do that. But he knows who he is. So love you. Thank you. Keep doing your thing. Sorry I didn't do them dishes. I should have done them before I started the stream. Shout out. All right. Nothing but love. Thank you to everyone who showed up, who endured my ramblings. I'm going to do another stream. I'm going to come back and we're going to talk about this Alex Morse issue tonight. I promise at some point I have to get to this story. So it's an important story. It must be discussed. And it's the title of this video. I'm so ashamed that I didn't get to it. I'm so sorry. I can't keep teasing with that and then not getting to the story. So I apologize. We will link up soon. All right.